Welcome, YouTube community. Welcome to another Nerdy Collective. Now that I got you. Wham. Welcome to another Nerdy Collective tonight. Thank you, Whodad. I appreciate it. You're the man. And I want to do a really quick, big shout out there to somebody in the community and somebody who's been with us for a long time and somebody who actually kind of helped me get my butt started along with other YouTubers that are out there that we all are well known out there. But this is from Rod, and everybody knows Rod. He is Just a Rican and his comics. I want to show you something, you guys. This was awesome. I was very happy. So just like Bueller, he brought out a comic book, and we got some Rod cards here. Look at this. He's even got his own business cards. Look at this with his hat. I even have a hat for my little dog, just like Rod. But I want to say, I'm proud of you, buddy. I think this is awesome. That's fantastic. So support your community members as much as you can, when you can. Send me a little picture. I have not read this comic book, but he signed this one as well. A little picture. Look at that redhead on the cover. Love it. So, and here is the book. Hold on. I know somebody's going to be flipping out in a minute here, but there it is. Second Sight Publishing. Rod the Rican. He actually signed it for me. I told him I wanted him signed. Sign the back. Sign the front. This is the virgin version of it. Look at that redhead again. But this is the second issue. I don't know what the first issue is because I did not know it until I heard him put it out there and say, listen, it's called The Edge is the name of this. Got some stickers with this, which is pretty cool. Here it is. It's called The Edge by Second Sight Publishing. And there he is. He's got it signed up there again. There's Rod's signature. Boom. And he's got his little print on the back. So this is wonderful, Rod. Awesome, buddy. Excellent. Another nerd out there like the rest of us. So big shout out to you, buddy. Thank you so much. And now, without further ado, I got to get my co-host on here, you guys. Wait a minute. Where do we go here? Boom. Let's go with wham.
Hello, YouTubians! We are on the Nerdy Collective show, premiering Mr. White Glove's comic book Empire in Progress, the long-awaited. There it is, back behind me, folks.
That's awesome, buddy. That is so awesome. That was perfect. Awesome,
Under
awesome.
construction, excuse me, because it is raining and it's not insulated yet. That's the kind of the noise and the echo. I sound like I'm in a stadium, but this is it.
That's so exciting, Monty. You have no idea. You've been talking about this for a long time. Nice.
Forever.
So nice. So a big shout out to everybody in the chat. We have Puff, buddy. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. Let me get you up here real quick. Who dat? Puff, yo, buddy. Space Wrangler, what's up? Magic Lasso, thank you so much, buddy, for being here. Appreciate it. Yes, he is. So let's get our next co-host on here. And here we go.
What's going on,
Dude.
Comic fam? What's happening?
Awesome, buddy. Awesome. Real quick shout out. We got Steve Whiting in the house. Dude, I'm so happy. So nice to see you, buddy. Awesome. Yeah. Cool. How is everybody? How was your guys' week? Mine's been rough.
Yeah, rough and busy.
Very, very busy. Always working. I think we're working too damn hard for our comic books. What do you think?
Yeah,
No, that's right.
You know, it could be worse.
Yes. What'd you say, Monty?
I said, that's right. I'm just glad for the weekends. I'm like Loverboy. I'm working for the weekend.
That's right. Okay, without further ado, I think we should get our guest on here and not have him waiting for so long here. Here we go. Here you go, guys. And we have none other than
What's up, Bronze Age believers? Thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks, G-Man.
nice. Awesome. You're welcome, buddy. Cool.
What's happening?
You know what my favorite thing is in his room? Can you guess, Deuce?
I don't know.
Look behind his shoulder. Look on his wall. Star Trek.
No, well,
All
of
those
course.
Star
it's
Trek
Trek.
posters. What's that?
Yeah, of course you love the Star Trek. See, I'm a Wars guy. You're a Trek guy. I'm a Wars guy.
Yeah.
Apples and oranges, though, brother. Apples and oranges.
No,
Yeah,
apples
right.
and oranges. And again, still great fantasy, still great sci-fi. There's love and respect across the borders.
That's right.
But there is still the feud between the geek war, between the Treks and the Wars people. It's still
But see, there's an easy way to. There's a simple way to get rid of that argument. You're talking about Star Wars, right?
of course.
Okay, Star Wars is the past. Star Trek is our possible human future. That's how I see it.
I just can't wait until all those other Captain Kirks, start showing up all over the galaxy.
I love Trek. I'm a Trek fan. So, Brian, welcome. Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
Nerdy Collective. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this. Been loving your videos, what you've been doing. And by the way, everybody out there, the latest videos that I really enjoyed from Brian are down below. So the links to his YouTube channel are down below and everybody else down the bottom. So check them out. Carolina 26, buddy. Thank you so much for being here, buddy. Appreciate it. Space Ranger, how you doing? So, Brian, how are you?
I am wonderful. Hope everybody in the chat is great. Hope all of you. Now, is everybody in Wisconsin or just you, Robert?
Just me.
Okay.
Oh, no, wait. No, we have another one. Magic Lasso in the house.
Oh, that's
Magic
right. Yeah,
is
Ryan.
in
Yes.
Wisconsin. Me and Ryan have to we have to hook up. We have to go hunting because he's like on the border somewhere, really close.
Okay.
Definitely, that's going to happen. We're going to make that happen. Questions, gentlemen.
All right, Bronze Age.
Let's start. Here we go.
Let's see here. First thing, the obvious thing I'm going to ask you, why Bronze Age? Why not silver?
Actually, that's pretty much when I was born. I'll go ahead and reveal this. I guess I'm going to be 50 this year. So 1971 is the birth of Bronze Age comics and the birth of BronzeAgeBryon. So we had Conan #1 from Marvel, we had Green Lantern, Green Arrow 76 from DC, and launched us into that whole period that culminated with Crisis on Infinite Earth, and then of course we go on from there. But those are the comics I grew up with. Those were some of those early ones, obviously, when I was very young, that my dad kind of pushed my way. But, by the late 70s, I was then, of course, collecting books on my own, going to the mall, and they had the spinner racks, and kind of started building a small little collection from there.
Nice.
What is one of the first books that you remember picking up as a kid?
Funny you should ask. I have it right here. And oddly enough, I think Robert's going to like this as well because it has tentacles.
Yeah.
So this is Mike Grell had taken over the run by this point with after Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil did their phenomenal work on this particular title. But this was the first book I bought. I bought it when I went to the mall with my grandfather. He used to go buy tobacco at a shop at the mall called the Smoke Shop, and they had a spinner rack full of comics.
What issue is that? A Green Lantern. What issue is that?
Gosh, I 106. I almost said 104. This
106 of Green Lantern, right?
Yeah. So, well, if you go looking this up, they refer to it as Green Lantern Volume 2, even though it kind of became an anthology because both characters had that little hiccup in their run. So, as they've done with other characters and other publishers, they team them up.
Cool. Okay, I should have asked the obvious question. What was the first Marvel book that you picked up?
Believe it or not, I don't really. I mean, because my main characters that we'll talk about here tonight are all DC. I don't think I picked up. I don't think I picked up any Marvel until I started collecting later in the '80s. I got thanks to Fox Animation, I got bit by the X-Men bug. Yeah. And collected all those titles on the regular and. But there's a few scant Marvel titles here and there that I bought as a kid. Like I know I have a couple issues of Black Panther, have some Iron Fist and Power Man. But again, I can't really trace that lineage. I think I just bought them like at places. Like they maybe didn't have something I wanted. I'm like, oh, I'm getting a comic, so I'm going to grab this.
Okay, I'll forgive you.
I always find it interesting, like what people's origins for comics are. I always think it's, it's your first exposure. It's like where you come from, kind of. Right. Even sometimes family lineage. Like again, like you said, your pop pushed books towards you. I think that's always very, very interesting. Like people's perspective on how they got into stuff and also their influences. So,
very true.
As far as DC goes, what do you think are like your top 5 DC pick heroes?
Well, top DC. I have a few of my dad passed me some Neil Adams Batmans, so I've got a few of those. And then of course I collected Batman once I got a job in the mid '80s and stuck with that run for a little while. But don't have a ton of Bronze Age Batman. Green Arrow is probably, Green Arrow and Shazam are my interchangeable #1s at DC. Love Shazam, always have since the live action series on CBS from the mid '70s.
I remember that.
Fantastic. I got to meet Jackson Bostwick about 3 years ago. He came to a con here in Florida, and I drove down to Fort Myers to meet him. He and I talked, I think, forever. It was crazy. There was hardly anybody approaching him. And he didn't have any placards or signage, so I don't think people really knew who he was.
Right.
He was just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, I know this dude. I came here to see this guy. So we sat and talked for a good 20 minutes or more just about that show and ISIS and, how he kind of got booted out of that show, unfortunately, because they were looking to cut costs, and they put Dad Bod Shazam in there.
Wow.
I used to watch
Shazam, Green Arrow, Batman, Teen Titans, big fan of George Perez's run with Teen Titans and Marv Wolfman.
I have a lot of that as well.
Yeah,
Very
so
nice.
those are my faves from DC.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, I used to watch Shazam ISIS Hour. That was cool back in the day.
Yeah, it was.
And they did away with the Saturday morning cartoons just about. I mean, they're just very few on, and it just kills me that kids won't get to grow up like I did back in the 70s.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yep.
So I've had my grandsons watching the old Fox Silver Surfer, and they've been telling me, and I've been cluing them in on certain things, and they've been kind of like, "Grandpa, did you know this?" I go, "Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it?" Yeah. They're like 7 years old, and that Silver Surfer, when it came out on Fox, was pretty sophisticated. It was not really a kids show, and they directed it towards kids. It was pretty sophisticated show.
Yeah.
Real quick, we have Comic Hall Roundtable. I got to do something for them real quick. We got a brick drop for these guys. Give me 1 second. Short.
I got a brick somewhere in this barn.
Yeah, we got to have a brick. So here we go, gentlemen. This is for my other crew, my other brothers out there that do a wonderful show on Saturday. They'll have a next show next Saturday. They're in the links down in the description down below. Here you go. Make sure you check out the Comic Crew every other Saturday or every Saturday. They'll give you the descriptions. So go check them out, you guys. They're great. Sorry, guys. All right. Back to our guests here, gentlemen. Go ahead. Who wants to ask the next question?
Okay. Reading your DC books, what is your favorite run of DC? Like I got plenty of Marvel, like the Byrne Fantastic Four and the Chris Claremont X-Men and the Bob Layton, what he did on the Iron Man and stuff like that. So what is your favorite run of books in the DC line?
Right. Well, I'm going to stick with Green Arrow here for just a moment. I'm going to show off a couple of things real quick. Love The Brave and the Bold.
Yes.
And this is some early Neil Adams here. And this is actually when the look of Green Arrow got changed for the first time. So Neil Adams gave him this iconic look. And DC stuck with this for quite a while up until they actually kind of turned it over to Mike Grell completely after Green Arrow got his own solo title. So that gave him that iconic look. And that's another thing I really like about the Bronze Age is you had a nice solid 10 years of characters maintaining their signature look. So even when they switched artists, you could still like, okay, hey, that's my Green Arrow or that's my Batman. They stuck with things. Even if you go over to another Brave and the Bold and you switch over to Jim Apparo's work or even Dick Giordano when he was doing work on the book, you still had that distinctive look for the characters. It wasn't a reinvention of what they looked like or who they were.
Those are beautiful books. I know I have those books
and then,
too.
Then you get to Mike Grell when he takes over the solo title for Green Arrow, a whole different look. Now he's doing the writing here, and he's got Giordano's handling some of the pencils, but they changed his look, which isn't bad, but it wasn't the iconic look that I was very much used to reading. And I remember when they first changed that, I'm like, what gives here? So,
right.
But you had to kind of wrap your head around that. So probably my I have a lot of different runs in Green Arrow, and there are so many that if I went talking, I could get going for quite a while. Actually, probably the more modern day run. He's enjoying a lot of success with Sweet Tooth on Netflix right now. But Jeff Lemire, his run on Green Arrow is part of the New 52. He took over with issue 17 and went into the mid 30s. So he had about a 2-year run on this book when it was a monthly title. If people that are new are looking for some Green Arrow stuff, fantastic. And you can get this in trade paperback as well. You don't have to go find all these issues.
Yeah, I do.
But,
I'll find all the issues.
but Jeff Lemire, this run he did with art by Andrea Sorrentino, just fantastic stuff. Oliver is de-aged a little bit in this reboot, but it's still fantastic. It works so well. It's very engaging, and that art is so gripping by Sorrentino.
I like it. I like it. Have you watched Sweet Tooth? Just out of
I
curiosity.
have, yes. My wife and I finished it, yes.
Yes. What did you think?
I enjoyed it very much. I only kind of spot read the comics a little bit, because I didn't think that was really in my wheelhouse. So I remember just kind of leafing through it here and there, and I talked to some friends that read it. And then, when I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, watch this with me? She's like, oh, the deer kid's cute. I'm like, okay, I've got her hooked. So, so we watched that, and she ended up really, really liking it. She was involved in it. She's like, hey, let's watch another one.
My wife is on my case now. She's like, do you have the first issue of that? I went, nope.
Yeah. You can find it all over the place now. We were just
of course,
just at a shop the other day, and they've got the Sweet Tooth Compendium and trade paperbacks. It's all over the place.
Find them. Yeah, big time. That'll be for her personal collection.
Right, very nice.
What is it? Go ahead.
So I noticed in your videos you do lots of you've gone to several conventions lately, which is it's really, really cool to see the conventions finally coming back. And I'm really, really super pumped to go to some myself again this year. Yeah. How do you pick and choose what you shoot and what you show from the convention floor?
Actually, my wife and I were both big fans of Comic Book Men on, when that was running with Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
And when I first kind of decided to do a YouTube channel, I thought, you know what, I think I'm going to go. So if you watch some of my early videos, I've kind of broken away from it now a little bit because I'm finding my own niche. But those early videos had beats and edits, to the cut of like with the intro of Comic Book Man when they show shots of Red Bank, New Jersey. They kind of go around. So that's kind of what I went with initially in designing that. But picking and choosing the cons, I try to go to, I've been going to cons since before, most of the people were going to cons. I remember when I moved to Florida in the mid 90s, I went to, one of the earliest mega cons, as we just turned over into the century. And I was one of maybe, 300, 400 people there, and then, when my wife and I went to one together in 2014, and they announced the attendance at 56,000 for the same MegaCon. Right. So basically, about 10 to 12 years later, we've acquired 55,000 fans that are now packing that convention center there in Orlando. It's insane. It's crazy.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I get that. I mean, I've been going to Dragon Con for years off and on here in Atlanta. But, I mean, the attendance was always a lot bigger here because it was one of the biggest cons in the Southeast for the longest time. So that was also interesting, too, to see every year more and more cosplayers, more and more, bigger names, more bigger artists, more bigger, everybody from Hollywood. I mean, it became like pretty much like, SDCC for the Southeast. If it wasn't New York or in California, it was going on down here. So, but it's it's definitely interesting to see how things have definitely changed. And being a nerd back then was not cool. Now it's become super cool. It's kind of funny.
Okay, I got a two-part question.
Sure.
If you were stranded on a desert island and could only take 3 comic books, what 3 would they be?
That's an interesting one. Let's see. I'm sure I have them amongst my stack here. I'm going to go with Teen Titans #1.
Excellent.
So one of my all-time favorite books. So
I like that book too.
Definitely love that. And I'm going to stick with Teen Titans there for a second because this run with Brother Blood, this whole storyline, my gosh. I mean, reading this as a young boy blew my mind. Like, this is insane that this guy goes to these lengths to amass these followers. And, he was so just bent on gaining control of Dick Grayson at the time and breaking up the Titans and destroying them and mind controlling Raven. There's just so much stuff that is off the chart here for, an early 80s book. with those guys. Then, of course, there is the first appearance of that era of the Titan here in DC Comics Presents 26. So, and again, this is one of my original copies. I bought this at a campground. I used to go camping with my grandma and grandpa up at Wolf's KOA in the Ohio, northern Pennsylvania area, and bought this just right off the rack. And for whatever reason, it was one of the ones that survived the storm, and I brought it in from the picnic table. So
Awesome.
I lost a lot of comics, sadly, that way. I would just, because again, comics at that point, they weren't expensive paper yet. So, we treated them like newspapers. I read them, and if I left them on the picnic table, I left them. But if the storm came through and they got wet, it's like, oh, well, lost that Action Comics or lost that, it's like, it was 35 cents. It was 40 cents. And we moved on.
I ended up giving that book away about 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh,
I gifted it. Yeah. My next little question was, what is going to the conventions? What is your go-to place that you just absolutely have to go to in a convention? Is it digging in the boxes, Artist Alley? I mean, there's something that you just one thing out that you just got to see at every convention.
Well, the new thing that has become something that I do, because before I never really had the funds to meet and get autographs and stuff like that. But now that I've become a more responsible adult, I'll say, I've been able to do that. So, we got MegaCon coming up in a few weeks down here in Florida. And last year it was announced, but of course, we had a little something happen that canceled stuff.
Frustrating.
So fortunately, George Takei is coming back after having to cancel last year. And he's one of the few Star Trek folks that I have not had a chance to meet yet for one reason or another. And so he's coming back. And so, I've already got that ticket booked, so I've got the ticket for that. I've got, my appearance there with my photo up for George, and super excited about that. So that's my go-to stuff now, especially the larger conventions, because that's where some of the, people go to that are a little more, higher level or, have a little bit of, archival, career, behind them. So that's usually the first stuff. And then, of course, like most people, I'm a dollar bin diver all day long, love the thrill of the hunt. And, sometimes I'll take, my daughter's not a kid anymore. She's 18. But, when she was like 10, 12, 13, and she would go to these shows, I'd give her a small little list, and she might be in one half of the convention. I can still see her, and she's like, "Is it this one? Is it this one?" And she got drawn into it as well. And when she'd find it, she's like, "I got it!" So it's like finding the golden ticket in a Wonka bar.
Yes. Awesome. Where are we here?
So, are there any particular artists or writers that you're like absolute top favorites?
Well, again, with the cancellation of stuff last year, the MegaCon lineup was incredible for the people they had on there. A few of them are coming back this August when they get the show. So this is George Perez's retirement tour. So he's going to be done doing cons, and he's coming to Orlando. And I had 2 different chances to meet him over the years. For those that don't know, unless he's changed anything, post-pandemic, what he used to do was he would not charge for anything, wouldn't charge for autographs or photo ops or anything like that. He just had so many people that he knew he had time to meet during a con during any given day. So he would issue like those little deli tickets. And he's like, hey, here's, 200 tickets today, 500 tickets today, whatever he thought he could get through. And they passed those out in the morning. And, when they were gone, they were gone. So I missed out on that one time when I went because I didn't realize that was the system. So I did a little bit of shopping first, and I went over to that table, and they were like, "Oh, we're done for the day." I'm like, "You've only been open 30 minutes. Like, what do you mean?" He's like, "Oh no, he does this process," and that's how I found out that's the way that rolls. And then, of course, last year he had to cancel, but he'll be back this year. So I'm going to go right to that table first thing.
I would too. I have a bunch of George
He's keeping that practice.
Nice.
And I want to make a comment on the dollar bin boxes. A lot of people don't know, but these dealers, what they do is they go through those dollar bins and they put bait books in there. So that way they can get everybody to go in there and dig all through those dollar books and maybe buy some more. So they will stick bait books in those dollar bins, and you can find them.
Yeah. I was just at a shop in Pittsburgh, which will be the weekly video upcoming this week. It'll be New Dimension Comics in Homestead, Pennsylvania. And the owners there explained to me that they didn't do it that day I was there, but every so often he referred to it, you said baiting, he referred to it as seeding. He said, I'll seed the bins every once in a while. And he said he'll float a few things out there like on social media or just do whatever media channels. And then, of course, people flock in there. And, when people have a chance, when you see that video of New Dimension Comics, it is a old Best Buy that has been repurposed as a comic book store. And I can't even tell you how many long boxes of dollar bins are in that place. I mean, it just it goes and it goes and it goes. It was almost infinite. And I was there 5 hours, and I didn't even scratch the surface.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's about like mile high. It'll take forever to go through that place.
Yeah. It's been weeks and weeks and weeks in
there. I was there in the 80s, Mile High in the 80s, and it was big then. I mean, he had, I think, 3 stores at that time, 2 or 3. I think it was 3. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to meet Chuck someday at Mile High. He's an interesting cat. I'd like to meet him someday.
You have a lot of similarities, I have to say, Brian. You have very much. You sure you're not related to Magic Lasso?
We've actually just met, believe it or not. So
really,
he and I even got connected was when I was on Sean's show. I met.
Nice.
I mean, this has been an incredible journey. It really has, because we kind of just tossed it around here a little bit before about how being a geek was not very popular. Growing up,
sure,
I didn't always share that I read comic books or watched Star Trek. I mean, I have friends now that I'm doing social media posts, and they're like, Brian, did you always watch Star Trek? I'm like, yeah, since I was like 7,
Yep.
Or did you always collect comic books? I'm like, yeah, pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
I had no idea, because you just did not advertise that, because that's an invitation to get your head dunked in a toilet by, someone from the defensive line on the football team.
Right.
That's just the way it rolled. So you didn't. So you hid all that stuff. And now, since I've decided to, do the YouTube channel and kind of get out there, I know, Steve, who was in the chat earlier. Of course, I can't see what you guys see, but I know that he's an acquaintance of Bueller.
Oh, and,
that's actually how I met all those guys, because I went to Bueller's appearance in Kissimmee when he came down to Florida at the end of 2020 and did the little show there. And he and I talked on several different occasions, during the show, just popping back in, and he introduced me to a couple of people, and he was like, hey, he's like, do you know Stay Puft? He goes, he's right here in Orlando, and he helped forge that relationship. And then, of course, Sean led to Jeff led to Steve, and then when I did Sean's show, that led to Ryan, and it just hasn't stopped. And, of course, that eventually led to you, G-Man, and now we've got Monty in here, and, it's just an ever-growing cycle that I am just so truly loving, that I can meet all these interesting people and talk comics with them, and just learn about their lives and learn about what they enjoy. It's a blessing. It's been fantastic.
It's been a lot of fun, and it makes good therapy too, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
for our everyday lives.
I never knew there was this many nerds out there.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny though too, because we all geek out on something, right? Like.
Right.
Like there's fandoms of really everything nowadays, and things have certainly changed from when we were kids, because I mean like we were saying before, like to be a nerd for something was not cool, but if you were a nerd about something that was cool in that popular time period, then it didn't matter, because it wasn't really you being a nerd, because if you were in the popular culture of that time frame, then it didn't really matter. But if it was on the outskirts, like if it was something different that was not mainstream, then you got ostracized for it. Then you were criticized for it, because it was something that was not quote unquote cool. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is, it's funny, because we all dork out, we all nerd out for something. I mean, whether it be
my kids still hate Star Trek
movies, whether it be horror films, whether it be comic books, action, whatever it is. Like everybody has their thing, But if it wasn't, popular during that frame of reference, then you got ostracized for it. So I still think it's kind of funny in this day and age, that people want to, or even, in those times that people were like, giving people hell for what they liked,
Yeah.
So it was a little different for me though. When I grew up, everybody in high school knew I collect comic books, and I was on the football team, the basketball team, the track team, and did all the sports and hung around with the guys and chased the girls and did all that stuff. But I never really got ostracized for the collecting the comic books. There was 2 other people in school that collected them, and everybody just really didn't pay attention to them. I know that family and some friends told me, said them books will never be worth anything. I mean, my parents were the and my brothers, they was like, they called them funny books. Said they'll never be worth anything. Well, now they've seen, and now they're like, wow, why didn't we do that?
Right. Well, I think it's funny too because
animation.
I fit into lots of different categories as a kid too, because I was athletic. I played sports. I was into movies. I was into horror. I was into action figures, Star Wars, all kinds of different stuff. So I fit into all kind of different categories, but I also collected comics too. So like, I didn't really get too much hell over a lot of stuff, but I fit into a lot of different categories with lots of different kinds of people. So I thought it was interesting too, kind of how things get divided based on, it's really just about perception, honestly.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, I was real lucky.
See, I got into sports because of fighting, because I used to have the stupid jocks always picking on me all the time. I was a super nerd. I hung out with the computer class, the chess class, everything else, but I was kind of a punk rocker at the same time. So they didn't like that about me. So I always had to defend myself through school. I hated it.
They didn't have computers back then. Come on, man.
Yeah. Not like now. We had, that was when Apple started.
TRS-80, Commodore.
Started, the Commodore. Come on. You're talking about DOS back then.
Yeah, all DOS. DOS.
Then it went to extended basic and you had to write your programs.
That's right. I made a program. I made part of a program making, I made a mirror image of, it was Defender, the ship flying across. There was a lot of code for that.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yo, Steve, man, oh man, the con is coming up, and it's coming up on his birthday. I think it's starting on his birthday weekend. So yeah, it's his birthday as well, Steve. August 13th, I think. See, I don't forget. Yeah. Hold on. Just gonna make sure everybody gets shout out really quick. Sandy. Yes, we're all shouting you out, Shawnee. Nice to see you. And what was that? I've said before, comics brought us together, and once we find out all the things we love, it branches out and have conversations more than just comics. That's right, Puff.
That's big time. Absolutely. Big
time. I used to get ribbed because I knew X-Men get the same folks were. Yep. Nice. All right. And chat, really quick, you guys on the chat. If you have any questions for Byron, please put them in the chat. If I feel they're appropriate, I'll post them up on the top. So just be nice. So, any more questions, gentlemen?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, so
Star Trek.
Let's talk about fanboys, shall we?
Go ahead.
The whole Star Trek versus Star Wars fandoms, right?
All right.
So, and Fanboys was a great example of a bunch of Lucas fans going after and poking fun at a bunch of the Star Trek fans. Of course, Will Shatner shows up in the movie and does his whole thing because it's Shatner, right? So, what do you think about that? And like, how could that have gone different if it was the roles were reversed, right? So, say it was a bunch of like Roddenberry, fans that were going after like the Lucas people. So how do you think that would have spun out?
That's actually a good question.
Would Mark Hamill show up and be like the would he be like the Shatner of the version? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do like how Hamill is doing a lot more stuff now that's cheeky and comedic.
Yep.
You know, he's in those commercials with Patrick Stewart from Star Trek. So that's really cool that he's embraced, you know, that part of his lineage.
I agree. And I got to tell you, I think that Next Generation was probably the best Trek out there. No question, in my opinion.
So, I mean, and that's another good example of stuff that, you know, I didn't tell anybody. They're like, hey, you going out on Saturday night? He's like, oh, no, I got to help my dad do this. Or I would make excuses out the wazoo to stay home and catch Star Trek at 7 o'clock in syndication on WPTT 22 in Pittsburgh. So, you know, it's just stuff you didn't, you know, advertise.
Yep. But it's funny stuff. Like, I'm curious to see, like, I'd love to see a version of Fanboys spun the other direction. Because I thought
that would be interesting.
Very entertaining. It was very entertaining, and I thought it was very, very funny how it was all kind of spun, you know?
You got the rain come back, Monty?
Yeah, it's coming back real hard. I don't know if I can hear it.
Wow, I can hear that. That's crazy.
I may have to mute here for a little bit.
No, you're better there now, Monty. You don't hear it now. You're
right
good.
There?
Yep, right there. Bro.
Okay. All right, I'll leave her. I can hear it in my headphones like crazy. It's going all around this barn.
Yeah,
G-Man, I think I saw a question in the chat there asking me who my captain was.
Yes, you did. I
got to go with Kirk only because that's who I started with. I know there's that eternal debate of Picard and Kirk and of course, you know, Cisco and their forth.
Mine was Kirk too for a long time until I seen him at a convention and then it turned me off.
Yeah, well,
he was a jerk back then when I went to see him.
Back then.
Yeah, I was gonna say back then. I was gonna say the kind of thing with that with him and the persona that is Shatner is it is just that it's Shatner.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like if he was at a press junket for T.J. Hooker, he was still the same Shatner.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's not what he was known for, obviously. But you know what I'm saying,
right? I can tell my Shatner story real quick. He was actually the first celebrity I ever met for a photo op. Yep. I'd never done that before, and he was coming to Orlando, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this. So, you know, buy your ticket, and that line was insane. This is in what year is this? 2009, maybe 2009, 2008. Huge line. I mean, it was easily 1,000 people deep. You know, and I was somewhere in the hundreds. Okay, so I'm waiting there, and I don't think I mentioned I'm a high school teacher. So I had rehearsed with one of my students because I had heard online that they said he doesn't let you talk to him. There's no conversation. You just pose for the picture, and that's it, and you're out of there. And I thought, well, you know, I'm paying $100 for this picture. I got to say something to him.
Yes.
So we were like rehearsing all these little things I could say to him that was quick and like out the door, and I could run. So I eventually came up with this statement that I've admired you all my life. And so when I got there, it was pretty much as advertised. His huge handlers were there. And one of them was that big dude that was in the Priceline commercial with him that wore that fur coat.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of his handlers. So he was there. And then there was another person that said, okay, you know, you're next. You can see him right there. Here are the rules. Don't talk to him. Don't touch him. Try not to make eye contact with him. Stand on the X behind him. They'll have you look at the camera. They'll take your picture and you exit out the back. And by then, my heart is like thundering in my chest because I'm like, I'm next. You know, it's like, you know, what do I do? They just, you know, am I going to get arrested if I say something to him? Like, I don't know what's going to happen here. So I did as they said. I walked. I stood on the X behind him. I looked up. You know, I wish I could show you this picture. It looks ridiculous. It's on my wall in here, and friends of mine make fun of it. It said it looks like that picture from Step Brothers because they use that really cheesy blue background, and behind there, so they're like, "Oh, yeah, it's Step Brothers with Shatner, right?" So it's a horrible picture, but I kept it anyway because I just didn't know. They were like, "Look here," and I'm like, "Whoop." And I looked up, and they're like, "Snap," and they're like, "Next," you know. But after they did that, I put my hand on his shoulder and I leaned in and I said, I've admired you all my life. And I ran out that back door. You think we'd wait to hear if he said thanks or acknowledged it? I took off.
That's great. That's awesome.
But I got to say it.
That's a great story. one of my favorite things with the old school Roddenberry Star Trek, especially Kirk's character, was like it was. I don't know if you've seen or read Money Shot, the comic book.
No, I haven't.
But it's basically the whole premise of the comic book is they're a bunch of scientists who basically jettison themselves out into space to find foreign life and see if they can have sex with it.
Oh,
which was pretty much Shatner throughout all the original Star Trek. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like find an alien and see if we can have sex with it.
Yeah, so it's like 1966.
Right? Yeah, seriously. So I just thought like that comic is hysterical, and just the premise of it was like just reminded me so much of Kirk's character.
Right.
That I've been a fan like just because I think it's fun.
See, I got to meet Kirk in 2018 at the Fan Expo there in Dallas. It was before they opened, and I sat there and talked to him for about 20 minutes. And it was ironic that I walked up and noticed he was over at the Star Wars table looking at all the Star Wars stuff. And I was sitting there going, wait a minute. Is that who I think it is? I said, what is he doing over here looking at the Star Wars stuff? So I walk up and I said, Mr. Shatner, I said, how are you doing today? And he says, oh, I'm doing pretty good. I said, I find it kind of disturbing that you're checking out the Star Wars stuff. He said, oh, it's pretty cool stuff. He said, I wish some of this stuff we'd have thought up back then. And I started laughing. And I was trying to find my son. My son was my cameraman and his buddy. And I was calling them on the phone and everything so they could, we could get up maybe an interview or something like that. Of course, they were off chasing cosplay girls, and I missed that opportunity to get it on camera. But we sat there and talked about Star Wars, talked about Star Trek, and I told him when I was young, I used to watch the old Star Trek and stuff, and I said it was amazing back then what they could do. And he said, you wouldn't believe that if you leaned against some of those consoles that were made out of cardboard with just lights plugged in them, you'd fall through them. Yeah. And it was crazy. But he was all right to me.
It's like that. People say you catch him at the right moment. He's quite chatty.
Yeah.
I've heard a few stories like that. But like I said, my experience, unfortunately, which, I get it a little bit. If you're meeting 2,000 people in 2 hours, you got to have a system. Yeah. I'll give them that a little bit. But I don't know. At least say hello to me.
Yeah.
Just, how you doing? Great,
my favorite Star Trek convention I ever went to was 25 years ago. Actually, it would be 30 years ago if I look at the dates. But it was with Leonard Nimoy. And I went to go see Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner. I couldn't get an autograph from William Shatner. There was no way. Leonard Nimoy, I got to talk for 20 minutes and have a drink with him.
Wow.
Before the show. And it was fantastic. He was my hero. So it was like he signed like 4 or 5 pictures, didn't charge me a dime for it. He was excellent. And then George Takei, awesome. So when you meet him, you're gonna love him. He's awesome.
Man,
great personality, right up there.
I miss those days.
Yeah,
what's that?
I said I miss those days. Like you could go to a convention, like people were just like artists and writers, and we're just excited that you showed up, and like you knew who they were.
Yep.
Yeah. Now celebrities, it's always been different, but
no, that's right. What was it here?
Yeah, I've got to meet a lot of people. I got to meet Chuck Norris, and that was awesome. He was pretty cool. I got to, and I can't even remember what their names were. But the cowboy on The Walking Dead, whatever that guy's name was, and then Abraham, whatever his name was. Got to meet those guys.
G-Man, I also saw another question there in the chat. I don't always address this, but somebody asked, does it bug you when people mispronounce your name?
Yes.
I got to blame my mom on this one. My mom, for whatever reason, had this clever spelling, and I don't mean, like, I used to correct them a lot, when I was younger, but now, sometimes I'm like, especially if it's someone like I work with. I'm like, all right, dude, I've worked with you for 18 years. You still can't get it right. You're not gonna.
Exactly.
So I just let it go. But fortunately, most everybody in my close proximity gets it, and they got it. But actually, my last name is Stedman, and actually, a lot of people call me that. people that have known me all my life, because my dad was Stedman, hey Stedman, So I've even had a few people say, after they get that, they're like, "What's your first name?" I'm like,
Brian, you know
I'm
what it
15.
is?
You don't know my first name?
You know what it is, Brian?
What's that?
It's when you see your name. That's where it confuses people to say it the right way. If you don't see it and you just remember Brian.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, but that's what
makes it easy, guys.
I don't know.
Yep.
Mom was just creative.
Real quick, we have, oh my goodness, we got John Comics with Kids. Thank you for being here, brother. Great show tonight. He did a great show with Comic Bearder Bro. That was excellent. On Lethal Weapon, and one of the best movies of all time. I've got to say it, The Goonies. At the very end, they talked about Goonies. Excellent stuff.
Classic.
Okay, where is it? Oh yeah, I've seen that too.
I noticed that the other day.
That's pretty funny. Yes. No,
the same kid in the Goonies was in Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Look at. Okay, hold on. I catch up really quick. Boom. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There you go. And all right, I have a question for you, Brian.
Sure.
What was your favorite episode? This is going to be 3 parts.
Okay.
What was your favorite episode of Original Trek,
all right,
Next Generation, and movie? I shouldn't say episode. I should say favorite movie.
Episode. Let's go TOS. I know it's a little cliche, but I do love The City on the Edge of Forever.
That was excellent.
There's not too many shows that have that staying power that you feel that decision and that emotion on Kirk's face when he has to let Edith Keeler die in order to preserve the timeline. It's fantastic. It's one of the greats. I love it. And then of course you got to love Arena with Shat Fu and the Gorn, so with the double punch, to the back, like if you're not liking that, then, whatever, forget it. So those are probably 2 of my faves. Next Generation, I do like The Measure of a Man a lot. I know it's a little bit of a courtroom drama style thing, but that's a great episode. Really makes you think in terms of, is Data a person or is he property?
Yep.
Again, those are the issues, the hot buttons that Trek is best at in discussing. So that's a great one. And then movie, believe it or not, it's over my shoulder, with a shoulder over here is the motion picture. I know you and I, G-Man, have talked about it a little bit, and it gets a little bit of a bad rap.
And we'll get on that. But
it brought Star Trek to the big screen. Yes. And it was actually the first movie I saw in theaters. My dad missed the boat on Star Wars. My dad was a Western guy. He was like, the tough guy. He's like, Brian, why can't you watch Charles Bronson movies or Clint Eastwood movies? I'm like, Dad, I like cartoons and spaceships, So, and he read that, he liked Flash Gordon a lot. But he just wasn't, into Star Wars, and all the neighborhood kids were into Star Wars. So I can remember this story like it was yesterday. I came home from school one day, and my mom took out the newspaper, and she's like, "Hey, your dad's getting off work, and he's going to take you to this movie." And she pointed to Star Trek: The Motion Picture that was in the newspaper. I was so excited because I'm like, it's space, and I got those Mego figures, and this is going to be incredible. So we go to see it. Sadly, my dad did not enjoy it, but that's all I talked about, forever. And I had to get the Mego figures, and I just had to have all that stuff.
Do you still have your Mego figures?
What's that?
Do you still have your Mego figures?
Let me see if I can tilt up there and see them up there.
What? That's awesome. The original Megos, you guys.
And I have the whole set. If you notice, that's the crew, and then it wraps around the side that I have the 6 aliens.
Spaceship? Do you have the old Barbie ship?
I once had that. I don't know where that got to. That was that old plastic that
and you could
sneeze on it.
Put them in the transporter and all that. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, I still have that. Yeah, I have that. That's it. I don't know where to put that just yet.
Yeah.
And then cool, the other original Mego figures are up on the wall above me here.
That's what I was asking. Is the original? The original.
And actually, again. Sorry, shameless plug. If anyone wants to see the Star Trek collection, there is a video on my channel called My Star Trek Office that runs you through the gamut of this collection that is in here. So
I should have put that link on there.
So that's up there if you want to see those original Mego figures and Next Generation figures and all posters and Art Asylum figures and everything else that is I'm submerged in right now. So
Joey Bag of Sevens, thank you for being here.
But but motion picture is probably my favorite movie, and
Now,
I can't even tell you how many times I've seen it. I cannot
I've
even
seen it
tell
multiple times. Too. Here's the thing. Here's the reason why me and Brian have a real attachment to the motion picture, the first Star Trek, because it talks about a couple of different things here. Out of the whole Star Trek universe, so much was in that first one that came into the fold with Next Generation and so on. One of the big ones, talking about when I said it could be possibly our future, Vija, which is Voyager in the motion picture, went and collected all this data out in the middle of the universe. Where is Voyager right now? It just left our solar system. It's in where nothing has gone before. It's taking, we might get images or what would they say? The next, it'll take 30 years before we even get a signal back from it.
Yeah, it's in the void.
Something like it's in the void right now, but it would take like 30 years for us to get any signal back from it.
Wow.
We have to realize we're like a needle in a haystack. And the cool thing about that is Voyager. Also, a little hint drop. Everybody remembers the Borg, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. The Borg. Go ahead. Tell them, Brian, what we talked
about.
Well,
there's a set of novels written or ghost written perhaps by Shatner that he suggests that the origins of the Borg is everything that comes from V'ger, and that planet populated by living machines, and then the organic components come from Decker's merger with Ilea, there at the site of the V'ger brain complex.
Yep.
So that's really interesting, to take that spin. And I really don't know why they didn't go. I mean, that's clever enough. I don't know why they didn't introduce that, somewhere along the line, even if it's just in dialogue.
I know. So that's another reason why we like that movie so much.
Well, I think it's interesting too that that space is definitely maybe the final frontier, no question. But
we're discovering stuff every day. Every day we're discovering stuff. I just watched the documentary on black holes. It was so cool.
Right. And we still can't even identify the depths of our own oceans, which is still baffling to me.
One of my favorites, I don't know if you guys watched it, but they did a special on Voyager, and it had the people who made Voyager, and I wish I could remember the name of the title, and it was on Netflix, but it showed the people now, they're like in their 60s when they were like back in their 30s and 20s when they made Voyager, the one with the golden record that everybody knows about. They got sent out and they did a redocumentation of it as it's leaving. I'm not kidding you. I'm going to sound like a sad sap, but when I watched it, you felt something when you watched this documentary. It literally made you kind of tear up because these people put their heart and soul into this. And if you think about it for one moment, who is the famous astronomer, Brian? You guys, he passed away.
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I thought you were going.
Perfect example. If you go back and you watch anything with the Voyager program, it took him a long time, but NASA wasn't going to allow Carl Sagan to do this one thing. And the one thing that will blow everybody's mind, and I bring this out to my friends that are science fiction geeks, is to watch that documentary because it really puts you in this, we are in this massive universe, and he shows what they did anyway. Long story short, he made NASA turn Voyager on its axis as it's going through, I think it was Jupiter moons, the rings, Saturn rings, as it was going out the other side. And he made them turn it and take photos, tons of photos, and then put it back on course. It took him forever to convince him, but they did it. When he got the pictures back, he had a big press conference, and he shows the pictures of Saturn. You can see the rings, you can see the dust, for the clarity of what we had for technology for camera views back then. Then he shows all the little white specks you see. And here you see this tiny little speck. It looks like a piece of sand and it's blue. And he goes, that's us.
Yep.
And you just, when you look at that, it makes you think it's awesome. I want to say we're not the only ones. It's to think that we are the only ones in the universe. There's no way. Yeah, I knew Monty was going to kick in on that.
It's thundering like crazy out here.
But you see where I'm going with it. I'm sorry, I'm going squirrel. You got to say squirrel, guys, if I went too crazy. But it's really cool, you guys. It's really, really cool. Captain, thank you very much for being here, brother. I'm getting a little excited, but
I completely agree. I think it's baffling to think that this little teeny speck, in a multiverse of who knows what.
Yeah, Goldilocks zone, they call it. It's like, look at how many other Earth-like planets that are out there in that possible Goldilocks zone. It's very interesting, But sorry to go off on the wall. We're getting off.
There's an equation called the Drake equation that figures out how many planets are inhabited in the universe.
Right.
But Bryon, I got something to ask you. What do you find most challenging in your videos that you do in the stores? What do you find the most challenging about that?
Well, you have to try to decide what to include, and the other thing too is I sometimes, occasionally I'll come across a store that is just, I don't know, maybe a little disheveled or whatever, or not quite what I'd like to present. I therefore don't record in there because, I never want to do, that's not what I'm doing this for. I'm not doing this to run anybody down, and maybe that's just a bad day. And that's why I was real specific when I went to Feed Your Imagination Comics. Dave Finley, who runs that store, he's only been open about 3 or 4 years, and he's mainly a convention show guy. So when that store, it just so happens on that day I went in there, it's a little disheveled, but he literally just got back from Jacksonville, and he was unloading his truck. And bringing all those boxes into the store. So I tried to make sure, I was like, I didn't know when I was going to have a chance to get back there. So I'm like, do you care if I record? And he's like, no, man. I said, tell you what I do. I'm going to make sure that I let people know that you are hauling stuff in here and putting stuff away in real time. So I tried to reflect that, But occasionally I'll go into a place that, maybe they have I won't name names, but I don't have too many decent LCS spots in a real close proximity to me, but I found one, and I finally went there, and I walked in, and I thought, where are the comics? It was a gentleman and sitting around a table, and they were all playing Dungeons and Dragons. He's like, well, the comics are over here. Yeah. And I went around the corner, and there was 8 long boxes of comics, and he's like, $1 each. I'm like, you're a store?
Yeah.
And then, kind of on my way out, I kind of peeked and I saw a little kitchen a makeshift kitchen, and it looked like there was a cot back there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this guy's living here.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it was just very bizarre. So obviously, I had shot a little bit of video outside already because he did have a name, for the store and the placard and all that stuff. And I don't know, so I did not do a video for that store because I'm like, hey, whatever you got going on here, you got going on here. But I'm not going to promote this.
I had when I used to go into the stores. I had 2 seasons of White Gloves across America that I did traveling around and filmed a bunch of comic stores. And I want to ask you, have you ever ran across a comic shop that doesn't want you to film inside?
The only time, believe it or not, I've been asked to leave an area was I did a video at Ollie's, and they didn't want me to record in Ollie's, but I had just finished. And I acted like I just started. So all I did was their comic section, and graphic novels up at the front. I wasn't running through getting, photos of other merchandise or people. And that's the other thing I try to do too. I try to get, hi-hat shots, or I try not to reveal too many people because I'm there for the merchandise, So I'm not there to get any oddities unless somebody's in a full cosplay outfit and they want in the shot. You can almost get a sense when people are like, oh, hey, take a picture of me, So I kind of do that, and I lean into that a little bit.
See, I had run across one in Kansas City and everything. It took me an hour to get downtown and find parking, and ended up walking 2 blocks over there. And I took video and pictures of the outside, walked in the door, and they got the register just right as you walk in the door. It's like 2 foot to the left of you. I mean, it's right there by the door. And they said, no cameras allowed. I went, what? Said, no cameras allowed. So I said, well, can I speak to the manager? He said, yep, you can talk to her, but she's going to tell you. I went back there and told her what I was doing, gave her a card, and she said, nope. Then I looked up the reviews on the place, and I know why.
Right.
Because they were very rude.
Wow.
It was downtown Kansas City, and I won't say the name, but I'm sure some
Right.
people out there know. But yeah, they were very rude. And I said, "Well, I'll put the camera up," and she says, "Nah, you just need to leave." I was like, "Okay."
Wow.
So I just left, and it was an awesome looking store. But yeah,
Oh, interesting.
So much for that.
yeah.
No, that's one thing I've noticed too, Brian. There's a store about 87 miles from me, and as soon as I walked in there, they're all playing Magic the Gathering and D&D. Every table in there, and all of the comic books are either on one side of the wall, and all of their $2 bins are in the back. And I went in there the first time, grabbed it was, I think, a short box for $100, long box for $200, whatever you could fill.
Wow.
So I went in there and filled a whole short box, right? And I knew what some of these books were. And I went up there, and the guy's going through the books, and I go, "Okay, well, this is your dollars, and this is your $2. I split it up. You can see what's here." And he goes, "Oh no, not that." He took out a stack like this out of my pile and put it on the side. And right away, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and he turns around and goes, "Oh, these aren't $1. These aren't $2. I have to look these up." I go, "Wait a minute. These are in your $1 and $2 bins.
Yeah.
Yep.
You either take my money, the $100 I'm paying for the box and the comics in it, or I leave. That's your choice.
Right.
You're welcome. I picked out whatever." "Oh, no, just this." I go, "Then forget it." I walked out of the store, never went back to that store.
Yeah.
Because
Sadly,
of that.
we're hearing more and more of this.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
I was watching, I think it was
into
Bronze
that
and
as well.
Modern Age Gods, and they did a whole show on it a couple of days back.
Yep.
I've actually experienced that myself. And I was like, wait, so I've got to come up here and you're going to price everything out after you told me that, after you priced these and said that these are all these prices? I'm like, okay, nope, I'm out.
Yep. Bye.
Yeah.
I walked out. I didn't care. I'm like, I can get these somewhere else. You're not the only store.
However,
Or the other
I will
online site.
I will tell you this. I've made some absolute steals on Whatnot lately.
Oh, I took a trip up to
that's
Wichita Falls. And filmed a store up there. And this guy, I pulled out a bunch of stuff that was priced, and I put it up there. And he looked at it, and he sat there and he told me, he said, "All right, what would you give for this?" And I'm like, "What?" And I told him, and he says, "I tell you what, let's take, I think it was like $80. I said, I'll give you $80 for this stack." And he said, "I tell you what, you give me 50 and you can have it." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "Yeah, there's some good books in there. And if Wichita Falls wasn't so far for me to drive, I would go back to that place, because I spent about 4 hours in that place and videoed." And he leaned over and he talked to me the whole time I was in there, and just talked. And I mean, me and him become pretty good buds in that 4 hour time. Yeah. And I had got more views from the Wichita Falls area from that video. I mean, it was crazy. And I really want to go back up there and see that guy again. And he had boxes after boxes, and then under the tables, boxes, long boxes. And in 4 hours, I couldn't even touch it.
Right.
Wow.
Crazy stuff.
There was hold on. There we go. This is from Puff. There you go, Brian.
Yeah. And I did ask him because, I've been to a few shops with Sean and the guys now, and we all met Sam J. Jones recently in Brandon, Florida, and I had met him previously in Jacksonville. So we went there, and Sean got his picture with him, as did a few of the other guys, Jim and Mike. So I asked if I could use their photos in the video for that particular shop. And oddly enough, that shop is one of the ones that we were just discussing that prices you at the counter when you check out. But they don't have anything priced, to kind of be fair. I mean, there's nothing priced in the store. They have a sign there that says, "Hey, pick your books, come to the counter, and we'll tell you what they are." And so, of course, we were like, "Nope." So we met Sam and we browsed a little bit, and I made a video, and And I mentioned that in the video because he had signage everywhere saying what it was.
Sure.
So I just let, again, I didn't disparage the store. I just let people know this is the policy of this particular store. So shop at your own risk.
Right.
You know, I've run into some stores that were like, oh man, just overly out there, man. I mean, no organization. I ended up with one that I had to get a flashlight to go to his back room. And he actually, I went back there and I said, there's no light switch. He said, yeah, but the lights don't work. And he kind of said, I got this flashlight I'll rent for $1. And I'm like, no, I got one in my pickup. And I go back there in these long boxes. It's stacks of comics are on top of the long boxes. And I'm digging and I'm pulling out like gold that he didn't even know was back there. And I get up there and he goes, oh, yeah, see, you found them. I hadn't seen those in a long time. So, and, you know, gave me a deal on it. And it was like the one you were talking about. He had a couch and everything in the front of the store. And then he had stairs going up and he lived above the comic shop. Yeah, and he just hung out there, and his living room was at the comic shop, you know. And super nice guy, but nothing organized.
Yep.
It was a nightmare, but it was like elbows deep in comic books, and I loved it.
Very nice.
You'd be there for days.
Yeah,
for
those are the honey holes you want to hit and stay in for a good long time.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to go back. I saw I think it was Sean's post. I don't think I knew Sci-Fi City was still open there in Orlando. I haven't been there in a long time. When I first moved to Florida, I lived in Sarasota briefly, and then I moved to St. Cloud, where I first started teaching, and I used to go to Sci-Fi City. But I hadn't heard anything about them in a while. I thought they folded, so that's going to have to be on the travel calendar.
So speaking of teaching, you what do you teach?
I teach video production of all things.
So, wow, really?
That's what my degree is in, and that's what I do. This would be my 25th
so as a teacher,
year.
how did I do? How am I doing so far?
So not bad at all.
Oh, thank you.
Nice streaming quality. StreamYard helps a lot, and we're not using OBS or anything, you know. Yeah. So, but that's another reason I started the channel. That's going to be this year's big lesson plan because I was at home with my students this past year. They needed somebody because I have multiple certifications in Photoshop, Premiere Pro, Microsoft Office, whatnot. And they said, hey, you know, Brian, we need somebody to teach all these kids from home due to the pandemic. And they said, would you stay home this year and teach all these kids? And when they said all these kids, I thought, all these kids, my usual amount of kids. So I agreed to it. But then I had like 375 kids. I'm like, bleh.
Wow.
So that was a bit of a struggle. But, you know, we do what we got to do. And, you know, we got through it. But I learned during that time, I'm like, you know what? And that's when I really decided to kick the channel into high gear and, you know, do some different things. But the lesson plan that I've been building, you know, leading up to going back to school in August is how to teach these kids how to make their own YouTube channel. And I go from ground zero and do the whole idea of branding and development of the idea and building an audience. And, you know, so we're going to do the Photoshop lessons of how to make your icons and your logos and your banner pages and your splash pages and your thumbnails. And then, of course, we have a whole studio there where we can record content. We got green screens. We got Yeti microphones, you know, all kinds of stuff. So that's going to be this year's big lesson.
I'll take that class.
So I'm up for that myself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be contacting you because behind me, I'm building a studio, a YouTube studio. And I got lots of questions on, you know, what to use as far as painting the walls and the lighting trussel that's going across the top and all that stuff. And the microphones and the drop mics. And I mean, I got all sorts of stuff that I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. There's so many affordable solutions now for, you know, at-home studios and even the schools. You know, they want to spend all this money. You know, well, they're a government organization. Of course they want to spend money. You know, but they'll like put these little invoices past me, and I'm like, I can build that for half the price. Like, what are you doing?
I need a $3,000 hammer, please, because I've never seen one like this. It's got to be a $3,000.
While you're buying it, buy two. You know, so it's like no.
So okay, back on the sci-fi. Going back to the sci-fi stuff. So, what other influential sci-fi movies, other than Star Trek series or Star Wars series, would you recommend to other viewers?
Well, we just talked about Flash Gordon, and I know there's a whole black and white serials version, which is what my dad loved. He used to go watch the little serials, even the Captain Marvel serials, that were at the front of movies that continued week to week. And that might actually not be a bad idea moving forward. I know everyone's been rushing to the theater anyway because we've been cooped up. But if movies ever get to a point where they need something a little bit innovative, why not go back to putting serials in movies? That are 5-10 minutes long and they continue month to month or week to week or whatever. That would be interesting. I'm seeing the stuff pop in the comments. Yes, definitely. Battlestar Galactica, the original Lenny Larson run. Buck Rogers, on NBC.
Amazing. Agreed.
Fantastic stuff. And I have that whole run of, Monty was talking about Marvel Comics. I do have the entire run of Battlestar Galactica from Marvel Comics. So it's only 23 issues. And those are pretty attainable too. So if anyone's looking to jump on those and make those part of their Bronze Age collection, those are attainable via dollar bins or not that expensive.
There's one of those Battlestar Galactica is the Red Hulk's in there. It's the
yes.
What do you call it? When the idea first come out. Crap, can't think of the name of it. What it's called.
I know which cover you're talking of, though.
Yeah, it's got the red. There's like 3 or 4 of them that are in there in the Battlestar Galactica book.
Nice, Space Wrangler, nice.
I love it.
Yeah, but those are all. I mean, there's some great stuff, and I mean, Buck, of course, airs on that little bit of a cheesy side or whatever. I wish they could settle all the behind the scenes lawsuit garbage that's going on with the rights to Buck Rogers and produce something, worthy again. Same thing with Flash Gordon. I know it's been kind of pushed to the side, and Sci-Fi Channel tried to do a little bit more of a grounded Flash Gordon series. I think around 2005, 2006. It just did. It just missed the mark. And then, of course, the version they put on screen with Sam J. Jones and Timothy Dalton and those folks. I think just kind of. It wasn't a Star Wars. It wasn't a monster hit. I mean, Lorenzo Semple, who used to write the scripts for the cheesy Batman series in the '60s, wrote the screenplay for that. And for those of you that have seen it, it's a little campy. It's a little sexual. So it's a little weird. In some aspects. I mean, it's not. What's that Sean Connery movie? Is it Zaldar that just off the rails crazy? I forget what that is. He's like some kind of futuristic space hunter. And he wears that
yes,
red leather outfit.
that was I know which one you're talking about.
With a Z.
With the floating head. It was I know this.
But so Flash isn't as crazy as that movie.
Yes. Yes.
But that movie's nuts.
What was it called? Now it's gonna drive me nuts.
Yeah.
There it is. I think that's it.
Zardoz. Yeah.
Zardoz.
I mean, even the trailer, when you watch the trailer for that, it's like, Zardoz.
Yeah.
Zardoz. I'm like, what is this?
Yes.
So,
I got one to throw at you. You remember Salvage 1?
What is it?
With Salvage 1. It was with Andy Griffith that played on Mayberry. He had a junkyard and he built a spaceship, and they went up in space to get salvage old spaceships and satellites and bring it back down. It was called Salvage 1.
I'll have to look for that. I don't recall that one.
It's old Andy. His name's not Andy Griffith, is it? It's who played Andy Griffith from Mayberry. What's his name?
Talking about the skinny guy.
I want to call him Matlock.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's him, and they're talking about Man from Atlantis. Yeah, I remember that. That's the guy from
Dallas.
Dallas. Yeah. The Ewing,
swim.
one of the Ewings.
The swim. Remember the swim?
Yeah.
When you'd swim across the water. Yep. Yeah, I remember that.
In fact, I think I have that.
Yo.
I think I have that on here somewhere.
Yes, that was excellent. He would swim like that. Yeah. That's his name. Yep.
But after the success of Star Wars, I mean, TV networks were just throwing money at all kinds of little sci-fi projects to try to make things work. They were throwing whatever against the wall to see what stuck. But then once they realized they got into it, and this is $50,000 an episode, then they're cutting bait and they're canceling shows left and right. And they've made us fans of these properties, and now they're gone.
Oh, what was that? We Are Legion. Okay. Cool.
Or we
Any
are.
more questions, gentlemen?
Well, again, I'm always interested in people's
Go ahead, buddy.
love of the sci-fi. So, obviously, Star Trek was a huge influence. Were you ever interested in any of the horror kind of sci-fi stuff that came out eventually?
Well, probably not beyond Alien. I mean, that's obviously a big one. And I remember, I forget where. I think I had to see that on HBO. I know I didn't see it in the theater. My dad was like, "No, that's too violent and too crazy," But now, of course, kids are watching stuff on HBO Max where like Deathstroke is dropping the F-bomb and having, sexual relations with people. I'm like, that's a cartoon,
Right.
So, I don't know. There's just so much stuff out there nowadays. But Alien was something that I remember I had to go to somebody's house to watch on HBO several years because obviously the turnaround time between theater and HBO was not 3 to 6 months like it is now. It was more like 2 to 3 years.
Right.
So it was a long time. I remember I went to see that, and again, I was a little terrified at 11. I was like, okay, it's a little scary. As far as horror movies are concerned, I mean, I guess there is some horror sci-fi out there, but I don't know. I wasn't really drawn to all of that. I was more kind of just straight up sci-fi.
Right.
Can I show this, Robert?
Yeah, of course. Yes, I remember that. That's hilarious. There it is. There's the swim. Swish, swish, swish. That's it. Look at the webbed hands. That's
Patrick Duffy.
Patrick Duffy. That's hilarious. Wow. Boom.
That's for an upcoming show I want y'all to know on my channel about Atlantis. That's one of the sneak previews that will be coming up sometime with me and Kyle Walker.
That's great, Monty.
That show. Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Gosh.
And the effects they had to use to pull off, some of that early stuff. Talking with Jackson Bostwick, the original Shazam, he said that some of those flying scenes that weren't green screen, he said he was tied to a diving board on top of somebody's truck. And they would just drive the truck and hang out the window with the camera, and he was just trying to sell it, like he was flying. I was like, dude, how many OSHA violations is that for them to tie you to a diving board on an
I
old
was such a
F-150?
nerd, Dusty, talking about that. I was such a nerd, Dusty, about that show. I used to swim like that in a swimming pool.
Well, see, they drug him in a tank across the tank.
Yeah.
Well, his hands were together and everything. They drug him, and that's how he could do that.
I even got the comic books for Man from Atlantis.
Yeah, Marvel's got a run of those. I mean, but that was so popular too. The movie adaptation or the TV show adaptation. If they can get blood from a stone, they're going to do it.
Yeah, they will.
Well, again, I'd love to see another reboot of Buck Rogers, like we were talking about, and I'd love to see another reboot again, yet of Battlestar Galactica, because that was great. I love all the series of Battlestar Galactica.
What was the dog's name in Buck Rogers? That little, that little weird thing.
Oh,
you're thinking of Battlestar Galactica.
Galactica.
That's not Battlestar Galactica. You're talking. I know what he's talking about. He's talking
Yeah,
about
that little robot dog.
He was like a little robotic dog. It was what was he called?
what was the dog's name, guys?
Well, now we said Buck Rogers. I keep wanting to say Tweaky, but that's the little robot with Dr. Thermopolis.
Yeah,
Oh.
Tweaky was beady, 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 beady.
Yeah, Mel Blanc.
Yeah.
Yeah, the little teddy bear, Big Remo
Yeah.
said. Yeah, he had the
Yeah,
space
I
suit
got
on.
the picture in my head. Totally.
Yes.
It almost
used
looks like those teddy bears from Thundercats.
Remo. Remo.
They're all looking it up. I know it.
Muffin.
That sounds right. I think
Muffin.
God King's in the house.
God
Yo,
dang.
buddy.
Muffin's correct.
That's awesome, God King.
I used to have the model of the Battlestar Galactica, that little pointed ship that had the three.
Right.
You know, I still got it somewhere around here that I put together back when it came out. I'll have to get my toys will all go on display, and you'll get to see a lot of them when I get this done.
Cool.
I have an OG beat up Cylon Raider, but I don't have like the missiles that came with or the cockpit cover, but I have the old school Cylon Raider from back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah, that
I
was
saw
something
that
else.
second name in there, so now I'm curious. Somebody put Daggett in there, and that sounds familiar too.
Yeah, it does.
Daggett does sound
Evans
familiar.
Put that in there.
I'm not even going to tell you what Google auto corrected me to.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I'm sure not. Big bag of sevens.
Yeah, it's Daggett.
Is it Daggett?
That's what. Well, that's
Yeah,
if it's on the internet, it's true.
That's awesome, Joey.
But
Awesome.
that Muffet sounds familiar in something
Yeah,
else.
that's why I initially went with that.
What does that sound familiar? What is that from?
I don't know. I don't know. We got a bunch of people out there.
Little
Look it up.
Miss.
Yeah, what was Muffin from? That reminds me.
You know, I'm going to have to build an ark if it keeps raining. I mean, this is crazy. It's been raining ever since like 11 o'clock.
I felt this the other night, man. We had some crazy storms come through here.
Get two of every animal and meet me out back.
Right?
I will not take no mosquitoes or flies. I promise.
Or fleas.
Any more questions, gentlemen?
I think I'm good.
I think we covered quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, a lot of ground.
A lot of ground.
And plus,
know
I
it's
got to go to the restroom, so. And I don't have one in here. I got to go in the house, and it's raining straight down, so I may be gone for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, just take. Yeah, okay, buddy. Just come back.
Okay, well, I'll be back. I
right,
promise.
buddy.
Maybe a little wet. It smell like a smelly cat.
Okay, Muffet was a dog from some movie. Can't remember. What the hell? It's driving me crazy. That was a show on CBS Saturday mornings.
Yeah, Arc 3. I remember that. That's all part of that whole new Shimer stuff. Yeah, Arc.
Okay. All right. Deuce, you good?
Yeah. We're good.
You're good. No, you got more. I know you'll have more questions in a minute. Okay. Well, when Monty comes back, do you have any questions for us while we're here?
So I can show you a few more of these
Brian.
books that I was talking about, just to kind of give you a little preview into
please.
stuff.
Absolutely.
So here's my number one
awesome.
Shazam that I've had for quite a while. This was a pass down book. So this was not bought by me because I think I was 4 when this came out. So I did not purchase that.
Great.
Another book soon to probably get a little bit of a bump after the Black Adam movie rolls around.
Agreed.
Believe it or not, this was actually my favorite Shazam book growing up. I did buy this one as a kid. This is my original. And this was my particular first introduction to Mr. Mind. And I know people love to make fun of the Rogues Gallery of Shazam. It is not very deep at all. But for him to do match wits with a worm, and it was just really interesting to find out that this whole thing was being manipulated by Mr. Mind. I'm like, oh, it's the worm! Yeah. So, and then of course there's the Jerry Ordway, run that went for a while. That's pretty nice. Here's another little Mr. Mind, appearance there. He's actually probably my favorite villain of Shazam. I know that sounds ridiculous, but they never invite him on fishing trips for some reason. The Trial of Shazam, again, this is another. I've really taken a liking to Judd Winnick over the years because he has a nice run on Green Arrow as well.
Okay.
that
I
comes
like that cover.
after
It's got
Kevin
a
Smith
tentacle
left
on
the
it.
title. And then there's the recent Jeff Johns reboot
Yes.
of the title that only lasted a little while, but this is actually a Jim Lee cover for issue number 4 variant that was out there. And before I did the channel, I actually I bought this at Torpedo Comics in Vegas. And this was before I was doing the YouTube channel, so therefore I don't have a video of Torpedo. I've been so many places before I started doing this show that I have to kind of go back. You know, I've been to San Diego Comic-Con. I've been to Midtown Comics in New York. I've been to Torpedo Comics. I've been a lot of places, and I just wasn't doing the channel at the time. So there wasn't a lot of that going on. As far as Green Arrow is concerned, there's a lot of other really good stuff. This, of course, every good superhero has to die at some point and come back. So this is your death of Green Arrow. And honestly, this is how I think they should have handled it in the TV series, rather than doing that whole making him the ultimate hero of their version of Crisis on Infinite Earth, and having him return as the Spectre and merging his identities with how Jordan was doing in the comics. This is so much better and grittier. Because, for him to die as part of a little terrorist trap, and the only way he's going to survive is if Superman burns his arm off. And Ollie's like, no, you're not taking my arm. I'm an archer. You're not taking my arm, Clark. So he goes down with the plane. And there's that famous scene in here, where Superman flies out of the plane as it blows up, and he's screaming Oliver's name. I mean, it's great. But he just couldn't believe that he'd rather die than lose his arm and live. So, but then Judd Winnick takes over that title after it started with Kevin Smith. I guess I'm going a little out of order there. Kevin Smith, this is after Green Arrow had been dead for a little while. Then he brought him back to life through whatever comic book magic, soap opera-ish. But they brought him back, and then later on in that run, Judd Winnick finally takes the helm, and he runs this for a good 3 years. And his writing is, I think, spot on. I know Green Arrow kind of gets a little bit of a bad rap for being what they call Batman light. But I think what's great about Judd's run with this is he leans into all that stereotypical, kind of criticism that is out there with Oliver, and gives him the Arrow car and gives him the Arrow cave and just totally leans into it. But he has some really, good writing and good stuff. And again, these are all dollar bin books right here. I mean, I've had these for a long time. But you can pick these up, this whole run of Judd Winnick of Green Arrow most anywhere. And then you get a little more towards the modern day. After Blackest Night, you had Brightest Day, and there's a great run here by J.T. Kroll with Green Arrow, and the art by Nieves it's mind blowing. I mean, Oliver hasn't had that much attention to detail in quite a while.
Wow.
You've got a little Hulk Hogan 4-lane highway in his try there, brother. So, they've really done a good job. And then, of course, we got to the New 52, where they did the relaunch. And George Perez was involved in this for a little while. He eventually split with DC at this point for creative differences, not only over Green Arrow, but he was doing the Superman relaunch as well. So, but then after that, Green Arrow was kind of dormant for a little while. He comes back with Rebirth. And I collected all these. These are the Neil Adams covers for. Neil did the covers of Rebirth. I think 1 through 16. He might have skipped 13 or 14, but I've got 1 through 16 of these. My favorite that he did was this issue here with him in Black Canary on the front. This is fantastic. For that new run, I loved that cover. And then sticking with that run, I'm a big Tyler Kirkham guy. I like him, so he did a little 3-issue arc. For both the covers and the interior pencils, that was amazing. And I'm a big fan of Ollie. I wish they would keep him around all the time.
Real quick, Brian, we have a question here. I had to go
sure.
back and look. I had to go back and look for it. It was for
No worries.
Dusty. It says, "Hey, Brian, I have questions. As a fan of Shazam and Captain Marvel, are you disappointed that the presence of DC comic books landscape has been limited over the last few years?"
Yeah, sadly, I don't really know what it all stems from. But for those that don't know the lineage, DC didn't always own Shazam and didn't create Shazam. That's a CC Beck creation from Wiz Comics and way back in the day. But there was a lawsuit that was brought against Wiz Comics and Fawcett City Comics and that whole branch. I don't want to go too deep into that, but they said he's too similar to Shazam. So they brought a lawsuit, and that book had to cease publication. So I don't know whether their misuse, to get Dusty's question a little more specific, has any roots in that. Like they're like, hey, look, we can't bump this guy up because we don't want him to overtake Superman. So I don't know whether they kind of, box him in a little bit on purpose and, don't, do the right stuff, with him. So
I kind of feel like that's exactly how that went, though.
I mean, they've never said that publicly, obviously, but that I think that's entirely possible. Because that's Superman's the crown jewel, obviously. For that, you wouldn't know it the way they've been treating him lately with Brian Michael Bendis. Finally getting off that book. Boy, speaking of Brian Michael Bendis, I gave this a try. He's writing checkmate because I needed my Green Arrow fix. So I'm like, you know what? Let me give this a go. Guess what? It's going. So
Carlito, I like Kurtman too.
Yeah.
He's good.
So I'll wait, but Ollie's going to get another stab at things. Oh, here's one too. I don't know if anyone's reading the Robin run. This is the Francis Manipal cover with Connor Hawke. So he's mixing it up with Damian Wayne in the Lazarus Pit, and it's pretty interesting. So that's a great, that's a great cover for that. But Oliver's going to get another crack at it. They're putting him in another anthology book. I think it starts in November, maybe sooner. They're teaming up with Aquaman, and I think it's either a 6-issue run or maybe 8. And I think it's called Deep Target, I think is the name of the series. And then he's going to be featured in the DC versus Vampires series that launches in October. That is from the creative team that brought us Deceased, the zombie epic. So that's from that creative team. Why that DC versus Vampires run needs to be 12 issues. You're going to tell me that's going to go from October of this year to October of next year?
Wow.
I mean, that's what they announced. Now, granted, publishers, pull and shorten runs all the time, but, that's one that needs to be, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 issues to get you through Halloween and be done at, around the end of the year. I don't know why that needs to be a 12-issue run.
Enough vampires.
But I think they saw how successful Deceased was. And
Deceased was good.
Here they go getting blood
not
from the
all
stomach.
of the, not all of the. By the way, a big quick shout out there to Big Lion Cat. Meow meow. Nice to see you, brother. And the thing is, I know the reason why when you mentioned Deceased, the reason why I said Big Lion Cat loves Deceased. He bought like every issue they ever had on that. It
was a great story. Very creative.
Yeah, it was a great
some
story.
of those horror movie homage covers were classic.
Yep.
Those were fantastic.
Yeah. Awesome. They were brilliant. I have quite a few myself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me too. Same thing now is happening when it comes to horror covers is Stray Dogs. Have you seen those?
Yep. I have.
Yeah. Wow. Have you read Stray Dogs?
I have not. I don't. That's one of those things that I don't know if I'm missing the boat on or not. Same thing with Nice House on the Lake. I don't know if I'm missing the boat on that.
Get that. Go get it. You can still get the first issue.
Yeah. So
it's definitely a good read. I think you'll like it.
Okay.
Well, there's other cool stuff like Silver Coin that's out there too.
I've heard a lot of things about that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some cool indie titles that are out there that are definitely worth a read.
Yeah. And I guess to hit up Dusty one more time, they are taking another stab at Shazam. They did cancel the Johns run. There was a 2-issue run with Future State. And then Shazam, I think it's a 4-issue series. I think it hits shelves next week because I already pre-ordered mine. And it's got an excellent Gary Frank cover with issue number 1 coming out. And I think that comes out this coming Wednesday. But that's a 4-issue series.
Joey Bag of Sevens give me some crap here. Really? Thanks, Joey. Mr. White Gloves. It's time to put back on the John Deere tractor.
Hey, my John Deere tractor makes me look sexy. Quick note on that Shazam. That lawsuit went on for years.
Yes.
Years. And I think they finally just broke Fawcett, and Fawcett just gave up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they were the bully on the block, and they just put them under.
And Shazam was a lot like Plastic Man back in the day because Shazam, it was more of a funny comic to read back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't as serious as Superman was. You know, Superman was serious, but he had a lot of funny characters that was on there. But Plastic Man, I mean, he was always just a character. He was just sometimes he could be, just hilarious and such.
There's often some really clever use of Plastic Man. Like I remember I used to read Justice League in the 90s, when Grant Morrison and Mark Waid were kind of going back and forth writing that book. And I remember there was one where Plastic Man showed up. They didn't know where he was, and you're supposed to meet him up. And Big Barda was a member of the JLA at that time, and she's wearing this dress. And it turns out that it's Plastic Man. He turned himself into a dress and hung himself in her closet. She put him on, and then his head came out of her shoulder, and she's like, "What?" That is so clever. That was so great.
Makes you wonder where they got Mr. Fantastic from, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, both titles. Oh my gosh, they borrow so much from each other.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like if they don't do it, you're like, oh, they're not going to do that.
They stole stuff left and right from each other, and then we're like, no, I don't know what you mean. What are you talking about?
Yep.
There was a comment that Archie Goodwin made it back in the Golden Age when he said that it was later on in years. He said that a lot of people put Marvel against DC, and they said they used to get together and have lunch and stuff, or see each other on the street and, go in and eat lunch. And they used to laugh and think, as long as we can think people are Marvel or DC or that we're against each other, the more books we'll sell. So we'll just keep this up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. I've heard that same story.
And a lot of those guys bounce back and forth, too, between the companies anyway.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Absolutely. I got a question.
Yeah.
Are you reading any indies?
I don't know why that is. I'm not really drawn to them. And I feel like sometimes when I do take a risk on something, I end up not liking it, and then it sours me to continue pursuing it.
I can understand that. I understand that.
And I think it's just because I'm such a superhero guy that it's hard for me. And I hear great stuff about Ice Cream Man. I know that's maybe not necessarily an indie anymore because it's part of the Image banner, But, I hear great stuff about so many of these books. Or even I always knew who Vampirella was, but I didn't understand its lineage and its depth until I started talking to Jeff and hanging out with Jeff. I was like, oh my gosh, I never even connected Frank Frazetta to Vampirella. I just didn't.
Yep.
Nobody
did. Yep.
So like I said, so I don't know, just for whatever reason. And I guess because I didn't have a lot of friends that were reading it, so I didn't have anybody to feed off of. I just had myself, and I knew what I liked, and that's what I bought.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, you like what you like, and that's cool.
Yeah. So, but I'm not opposed, to giving stuff a try. But sometimes it, $4, $5, $6 a book. It's like you got to pick and choose.
Oh yeah, it's hard, especially when you're trying to find something new and something different. Yeah, I've come across quite a few of them myself.
And I'm just trying to brace myself with lumber prices going through the roof. What are we going to look at with paper? Is we fixing to have a price hike? In our comics. I mean, we might do it.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you ready for the next two big questions?
I am.
There we go, sir. All right, good. And we are bam. Do you have any inspirational thoughts or ideas for the community as a whole?
We touched a little bit on this.
Sure.
But I think the thing is find your people. You know what I mean? And that's what I've spent a lot of time doing this past year and meeting these people and making these connections. So if you are in, you've seen just what we had right here, people chipping in and giving us answers and comments in the chat room for stuff that our brains weren't clicking into.
Sure.
But that's all part of what the community is. It's friendship, it's information, it's, bouncing ideas off each other, it's trading books, trading ideas, getting advice for, hey, should I buy this? Should I not? Should I see this movie? Should I not? So find your people, and everybody's people are different, obviously, but they're out there. You know, I had no idea that Sean and Jeff and Steve and those guys were even out there. You know, it took that little bridge built by Bueller for me to get to them.
Yep.
And now I'm at a point where I can't imagine not talking to them during the week, you know, at some level, or tuning into Jeff's show, you know, on Wednesday, since I'm off for the summer right now. You know, I just can't think of that not being a thing. It's almost like they've been there the whole time. But I've really only known them about 8 months.
Yep. Wow.
So find your people. If you're in the community, that's my inspirational suggestion to you. Find your people. They are out there.
Completely agree with that.
Awesome. All right. Next one. What does thinking outside the box mean to you?
Oh, I think you and I joked about it before. I
Yes,
spent a
we
little
did.
too much time thinking outside the bun and eating a little too much Taco Bell at one point, but that was clever on their part, so I'll give it to them.
Yep.
Thinking outside the box was something that I had to do a lot when inventing my programs, you know, at the high school level and stuff like that. But, you know, for TV production, because I remember when I got my first, you know, teaching job here in the Bradenton area where I'm living now, I bumped into who was going to be the new principal of a brand new school that they were launching in Bradenton. I was at a taping of the Emerald Show, of all things, in Orlando, because I was still working at St. Cloud. And, you know, St. Cloud had a very small program. They didn't have a lot of money. And this new school was an upper middle class school that they were just going to dump just a ton of cash at this school. And I kind of knew that, you know, once I'd heard about it. And when he and I got to talking, he was like, you know, what is your idea? And I said, well, you know, I envision an actual editing lab. You know, St. Cloud High School, they were making the decisions for me. Like they wouldn't let me have a thought or you know, decision in buying technology or what we're going to use. So I remember at the time, the Avid editing system was this big editing system that they were selling to news stations. It was like $2,000, like a giant computer. And they spent our entire budget on that. I'm like, that's crazy. You know, so when I met this new principal, I said, I envision this editing lab where we can have multiple computers. And I said, you know, and this is so hilarious to think that in 1999, he agreed to buy me 5, you know, what was those very early versions of the iMac computer. And they had 10 gigabyte hard drives. 10. A 10 gigabyte hard drive. And people are like, oh, it's a 10 gigabyte hard drive. It's like, my iPod that I bought a decade ago is a 132 gigabyte iPod, you know, so I had to think outside the box in terms of, you know, money, usage, kids, you know, reporting news, you know, doing edits. We decided to do spoofs. I know, not that I invented a spoof. I mean, Saturday Night Live and comedy is doing spoofs for decades, but I had not seen it yet at like the high school level, and teaching young kids the idea of the spoof, you know, and then empowering them to be the directors and creators of the show. I knew I wanted that early on because what little bit of AV stuff I had in high school was, I thought, very controlled, you know, rather than, you know, the teacher giving any of that control to us. They totally drove that bus. And I didn't feel like we had any wiggle room. So I wanted to train them how to, you know, use certain things, obviously. But then, you know what? This is your show. And I wasn't going to be the director. You're going to be the director. You know, so I picked directors. I picked, you know, and I let them craft it. And, you know, that took a year or two to really get into place. But I had a fantastic run there. I was at 18 years at Lakewood Ranch High School in Bradenton and met some really great, you know, kids along the way. I still talk to some of them, you know. That age gap is crazy that when you meet them, you know, and you lose track of time. You know, like, I'm like, oh, you babysitting? They're like, oh, no, Mr. Stebbin, I'm 30 and these are my kids. I'm like, whoa.
Right.
So that kind of blows my mind from time to time. But, you know, but it's just fantastic. You know, we had such a great run there. And then I just recently switched schools, you know, a couple of years back, and I intend to finish my career out there. So I just wanted something a little bit different, you know, to switch things up. And I'm at Palmetto High School now, same school district. And those kids have really taken me under their wing. You're bringing me in as a new teacher. And I really missed them during the pandemic. I missed them a lot. And I'm excited to get back with them and be creative and do really cool things. And we've got a brand new studio there because, you know, since I came over, I was the first teacher there in about close to a decade that had an actual degree in what they were doing. They were having like history teachers teach TV over there. They couldn't fill that spot for whatever reason. And I'm in Lakewood, so I didn't know anything about it. But when that opening came up, I just decided I'm like, you know what? I need a fresh start. and so I switched over. And so they threw some money at me to rebuild that studio because it was like technology from the 90s. And so I got with some friends and spent some time doing it. And we just got it done in March of 2020, like rebuilding the sets and putting all the stuff in. And we went on spring break.
So we got the answer to this question. It's very long, but it's very
sorry.
cool.
We went on spring break.
You getting what he's saying?
Come back. So
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's excellent. We have a question from Puff.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this to you really quick.
Okay.
And Puff wanted to know, Byron, how do you see a YouTube channel growing and expanding besides the StoreCon videos?
I watch who's that guy, Keones, that does variant comics.
Yep.
And he does a lot of those like history of characters and fills in the gaps, especially as they relate to shows that are happening, on HBO Max or Disney Plus or whatever. I had an idea initially for a segment. And I'm getting a new computer, as I told you, G-Man, not too long from now. But I had an idea for a segment called Getting Into Character. And I want to pick characters that I liked. And sort of like, I was going to start with Green Arrow. This is Green Arrow's 80th anniversary. And I initially had a plan to do this. But my camera was being wonky. And I'm actually glad it's working here tonight for this. But, to pick a character and show you the evolution of that character in terms of not necessarily the storyline, but the artwork. So hey, George Papp drew Green Arrow this way, when he appeared in More Fun Comics, way back in the 40s, and then it took Kirby, and a lot of people don't know this. Jack Kirby actually wrote the whole Island story and origin for Oliver Queen in Adventure Comics 256.
Yep.
So that's what I was looking to do, is do little things like that for various characters and adding little segments. And then I have another idea. Eventually, once I feel comfortable hosting my own show like you're doing here, I wanted to call, because I know we sometimes catch Cookie's show, which Silver Age Sundays. I want to do like Bronze Age banter and just talk about Bronze Age books. And that's what I would call the segment.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Also, I have something. This is bugging me, you guys. I'm sorry, but I gotta answer God Tank's thing. I want to, because this is driving me crazy. Right now, where are we? So, Puff, I hope that was good. That was an excellent answer to that question. God Tank is sitting there saying, comic book supplies or prices are going up. Yes, they are, God Tank.
Yep.
I want to show you something, God Tank. For sure, Puff. Hard to find bags and boards. Wait a minute. Where was the other one? He said bags and boards. Okay. Right now, God Tank, that's a commodity. I'm going to give you an example.
Squirrel.
Shiny things.
I'll give you a minute. All right. Here's a box with 5 sharp boxes in it. Take a guess how much this was.
I know the answer, so I won't say it.
Well, I know what that should cost you, but I don't know what it did cost you.
They should be like $8. What? Aren't they usually like averagely like $8 a box?
Yeah, about $7.99 a box.
Something like that. $45 for 5 short boxes.
Wow.
It's stupid. And it sucks for me.
Crazy.
I don't have an LCS. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Sorry. Didn't mean to go off page. I just seen that through that whole thing. I'm trying to get everybody's questions in.
I was gone a while ago, and I don't know if this question got answered or not. Someone wanted you to stand up and show your shirt.
No.
Did you show it?
Do not.
No,
I did not.
That's
Do not show it Bronze Age.
That's my Neil Adams Batman cover there.
Yep,
so
I love it.
I
love it.
Can I say something real quick about that book?
Yep.
I know this is a very sought after book and it's up in price. Have any of you guys ever read it? I love Denny O'Neil, but some of the dialogue and plot line in this particular book is wonky. There's a scene, well, the whole idea of this issue is the Joker's out of prison and Commissioner Gordon and Batman are worried he's going to kill his old gang before they can testify against him. So they're trying to go grab these guys and bring them in before the Joker gets to them, and either Joker toxins them or just straight up shoots them or whatever. So Batman's late almost every time. So he's killed already like 2 or 3 of the 5 members of this gang. So then he catches up with this one guy, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to take you into. We're not arresting you, but we're going to take you downtown because we want to protect you." And the guy says to Batman, "Can I go in and get my toothbrush first?" I'm serious. That's what and Batman says, "That sounds like a reasonable request."
When was
So
it? When
he
was
goes
that
to
book
walk
out?
in to get his toothbrush, but then he clubs Batman to run away from him. I'm like, how is the world's greatest detective hoodwinked by this guy to get a toothbrush? So I was like, whatever. But that is a little script part towards the middle of that book that
Of
always
course.
stuck with me. And I'm like, what is this? Yeah. I'm like, that happened.
Joker always wins. Oh my goodness, that's funny. Keep
Yeah,
talking,
when-
gentlemen. I have to stop for a moment. I have to do something for somebody here. Hold on.
No, you're good.
Yeah, when they actually catch him and put him in jail, he always comes back.
Yeah.
He's always there.
Ton.
Yeah,
That's a
Dusty.
little era too that the movies went through, where you saw it first in the Michael Keaton Batman, where they actually killed the Joker, and then of course in Batman Returns they kill the Penguin. But if they did that every issue of the comics we read, they'd be reinventing new villains every 30 to 60 days. So there has to be something for them to, get put away, break out of jail, or just escape flat out, whatever. Especially when they're such a great villain. You got to keep some people around.
Well, the Joker especially, he's probably the quintessential villain from all time.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, even people that don't have any inkling of comics know who the Joker is.
And it's hard not to. I mean, he's such an iconic, diabolical, chaotic creature. I mean, he's literally he's not really even so much evil as he is just complete chaos on a stick.
Right.
Like he's just, and honestly, he's one of my all-time favorite villains.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of that, because he just you never know what he's going to do. Yeah. He doesn't even know what he's going to do.
Right. I mean, because that's a really good point, because that's brought up in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight movie when Ledger's character talks about, well, I'm like the dog that chases a car. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to go get it. That's a perfect little, thing of the Joker's psyche.
Well,
he's psychotic.
In a lot of different stuff too, like in a lot of different other stuff, like Killing Joke, some other stories, even like there's some other inklings of that throughout his history.
Right.
That it's just like he's just chaos incarnate.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally is just there to antagonize Batman at every, way, shape, and form he can.
Yeah. They can't exist without the other.
Right. And again, that's the kind of the interesting balance they have too. Did you see the Snyder's cut?
Yes.
Did you see the whole thing? Like the whole?
I did. Yeah, I watched the little scene at the end.
Yeah, the prelude thing.
And again, he touches on that whole thing that they're, and then I think Ledger's character does it too in the Nolan movie, where he's like, "Hey, we're meant to do this dance."
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we're going to keep doing this until one of us is dead.
Yep. And I think that was a better portrayal for sure. I mean, most people I think would agree that Jared Leto's Joker was not the optimal Joker, obviously.
Well, I think it was good for what it was. They went with that kind of like, I don't know, thug kind of gangster kind of Joker, rather than the, so for what they were going for, especially in Suicide Squad, I thought it worked. He actually should have been the big bad in that movie. Yeah,
the extended cut of that movie was far better than the original.
Yes.
Suicide.
And I thought, to lean into that whole, like, he's the dog chasing the car, like he just wants it, but doesn't know what he's going to do with it. I thought would have been excellent if he was actually after the mother box,
right? That
Amanda Waller wanted, and that's why he took the copter down. Like, he didn't know what it was. He just knew that other people wanted it. Therefore he wanted it. I thought in that way at the end, when he got it, he'd be like, well, I don't know what, I got it, but now I don't know what to do with it,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, because Waller's motivation was always pretty clear.
Yes,
that was always pretty obvious.
Brian, something you mentioned about the book on your shirt,
right?
Okay, when you were telling me, it brought something to forward, and here it was right away, because perfect example of what he was talking about, what Brian was talking about, that book, and this was right here. Puff had mentioned it. I read the facsimile, yes, and the writing dialogue is very weird. I laugh when it happened in the book, yes, because
Yeah.
it's the same thing when you read like that's great, and people put down facsimiles, but I always buy tons of them for my grandson so they can read the classics,
Right.
and they'll ask me, they're like, "Grandpa, what does this mean? What?" And the wording is so different back then because it was a different time when they did it, but it will make you laugh. So that whole toothbrush scene you were talking about. I get that. But yeah, that's right there from Puff when he was talking about the dialogue. Yes, it's funny because different time. History, guys, history. Look at comic book history right there.
Yeah, so for that book to be valuable, it's really for its iconic cover, not its inside contents.
Pretty much. Or if it's something special like first appearance of somebody, that's what everybody's on the
to my knowledge, I don't think it's, I know the word key gets thrown around a lot, but to my knowledge, I know it's his first return, I think, in the Bronze Age as far as a character Joker, but even then, I mean, that's kind of loose as a key, so what? He exists, he's going to come back.
Yeah, of course.
Well, the Joker was always somewhat of a psychotic gangster in the 40s. I mean, he was treated. Yeah, and now over the years, I don't know how he changed because I don't know that much about the DC stuff, but I know a little bit about the Golden Age stuff. But he was he had aligned himself with a bunch of the mobsters back in the day and was like the head of his crime syndicate. And I just loved his car with his face on it. I mean, that was just awesome.
Big shout out to Eon, buddy. How are you? So nice to see you. So nice to see you. You have no idea. Big shout out to him. I had an AOK back from him a while back, and he sent me a gold foil H.P. Lovecraft novel. It was beautifully leather bound.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
Big thank you, and just gonna say it again. Thank you.
and to let y'all people know something, when all those boxes were going out, those mystery boxes were going out from anonymous people. There's a lot of those books and those mystery boxes that people were laughing about. Now some of those books are worth $100 each that got sent out.
Mine.
And some of those books that people say, "Well, why are they giving us this trash?" Yeah.
No.
Now they're starting to come back. Yeah.
Yep. I noticed that.
So who got the last laugh on that one, I guess?
I laughed because they're still sitting in my collection.
Yeah.
It was awesome, you guys. So, okay, where are we? Where are we at? There was something we mentioned about when we were talking about something we were talking about when it came to characters, facsimiles. Sorry, guys. I went scroll for a minute. Oh, you just mentioned it too, Monty.
About
it was something we were all talking about. Anyway, I'll get to it. I'll remember. My old brain is not working right. Any more questions, anyone? You have any questions for us, Brian?
I guess I didn't think about that with the reverse. That's one of those questions you get, when you go to an interview and you answer all this stuff and they're like, "Do you have any questions for us?" You're like, "Oh." I was like, I didn't expect to ask you anything. I thought I was going to do all the talking.
I want to see that. You got some more books in your hand?
Yeah, I was just we were talking about Star Trek, and Star Trek has a really interesting history with comics. Now I don't have any of the Gold Key Star Trek stuff. That's before my time. Believe it or not, I mean, I'm 50, but yet Gold Key was still before my time. So I, of course, picked up, the Marvel comic stuff after having seen the motion picture. So that's where, and this is actually, it's only 18 issues, but this is a really good run. There's a couple of stereotypical, stories in here. There's the one where, whatever, Kirk trips on something and he becomes a god. There's some of the stuff that exists in Star Trek,
Yep.
Great cover here. And there's, some cool stuff here. There's an entity that has it. They take Kirk and Spock prisoner, and the choice is what would each of them do for the other to keep them alive? and what they were trying to figure out. Like, of course, Star Trek always has these, entities, that are observing humankind and whatnot. But I thought it was interesting that they were trying to push them so far as to, would one of them give their life for the other?
Right.
And then, so of course, they have that happen, but then they revive Spock, in some kind of mystical way, because he gives his life for Kirk in a scenario. So it was very interesting.
Sounds familiar from a movie.
DC then, of course, takes over the reins. They push the license. And this is the other thing, we talked about, we were talking about Star Wars versus Star Trek. Yep. Star Wars, I feel like, always had a plan. Yeah. Especially when Lucas was in charge of everything. There was always a plan, in terms of marketing and movies. And, even, Lucas oversaw some of the comic book adaptations that even Roy Thomas was doing with Marvel. But Star Trek's like, oh, who wants to hold the license today? Oh, you're going to give me $5,000 for it? Here you go. Oh, wait, Mego, you don't want it anymore? We're going to give it to Playmates. Here you go. They would just pass the license of this property around so they could cash in on it, whether it's comics, action figures, or, look at all this stuff behind me with pillowcases and everything, So, I'm a sucker for half of this stuff. But, DC had it for a while. If anyone ever finds this, you can find this in dollar bins, but this is an incredible comic. There are so many informative, little things in here. There are just one page each of the history of so many characters, from TOS episodes all the way up through the movies. It goes all the way up through Star Trek 4.
Is that the Who's Who?
So, what's that?
Is that the Who's Who?
Yeah, the Who's Who in Star Trek.
Yeah, I have a couple
amazing,
of those.
And it's pretty canon accurate, for that. So if you're ever curious about Star Trek and be like, oh, there's so many characters I don't know. It goes through all of the folks that are in TOS, the bit players, the big players. It's really a good book. And then, of course, currently IDW has the license for Star Trek, and this run.
This is where I stopped, Brian. Should I continue?
What's that?
This is where I stopped. I did not get any of these. Should I continue with the Star Trek?
Oh, with these, no. They spend too much time with the Tholians. I'm like, all right.
Oh, are you kidding me? The buttheads?
No. The little red kind of. Well, we didn't know what they looked like in the original series.
Weren't the Lotholians? No. My
the Tholian, you don't really get to see who they are. There's a little glimpse of them in the original series, the Tholian web. They're like this red kind of cockroach looking.
They had like the glowing thing in the
right. So there's a little glimpse of them in the original series, but then when they go to Star Trek Enterprise, they go real full bore. When they have that. But this series is wrapping up, I think, with issue 24 or 25, and they're bringing the 5-year mission to a close that leads to Kirk's admiralty. So. But so I might pick up those last 3 just to see how they do it, because we've never really.
Okay, let me ask this question then.
Yeah.
As a Star Trek fan, should I get it?
I would say maybe pick up those last 3 issues, which I think the first one just hit the shelf this past Wednesday.
How about the run?
The whole run, no. And now some of the covers are kind of neat. They've got some of those retro covers,
right, that
are kind of like pop art kind of covers. So there's a few neat covers that are out there. So if you're just, I sometimes call myself a cover whore. So if you're a cover
driving
whore,
me crazy right now.
Then maybe maybe you grab that. But as far as collecting the whole run, I think I have issues 1 through 6. Then I was like, ugh. I was like, if we're going to keep showing this Tholian around, this is ridiculous. So,
Monty?
Yes.
Did you have something to say?
No, my butt was hurting. You was talking about the butt heads, and my ass is hurting, man. I had to stand up. I've been sitting too long.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
that's all right. You'll see
that's
me
just
run
a
around.
little bit of the Trek stuff.
You'll see me run around here.
All right. Go ahead, Brian.
So that's just a little bit of my Trek stuff. I thought since we had talked Trek earlier.
That was the IDW run?
Yeah, IDW currently has the license for it. I don't know whether that's expiring. I need to do a little bit of homework on that, or whether the book is just not working for them and they're pulling a plug on it. So I'm not sure.
Okay. Any more questions, gentlemen? Any more?
just watching him stand up, cracking me up.
I love it.
I'm old, man. I can't sit on my butt that long.
You need a better chair.
I've been doing it throughout this whole process.
Oh, believe me, I will be getting a new chair.
Yeah,
that will be coming.
This chair. I can see it coming. All right. Let's see the chat here really quick. Where are we? Okay, boom. Bam. Dusty Brook Brown's got a question.
Official handbook of the Marvel Universe. They're pretty good. Yeah, because I remember I bought several of those in the 90s. I don't know if anybody can remember. They sold a
I love
binder,
those. I still love those.
you know, and then they sold like the little filler sheets that you could make your own little encyclopedia, you know, for that. So, and of course they have all kinds of other versions of that. Like my wife bought me the history of the DC universe, and you can get, and don't buy any of those online, folks. You can get those at Sam's for a fraction of the cost. They're like $13, $17, and if you get them online, they're like 50. So
yeah, Boston Chris has a whole collection of those that you put in a binder and everything. He's been collecting those. That's the it's I can't remember what it's called. It's called the special handbook or deluxe or something like that.
Okay, because I like those too myself. They're fun.
Yeah, and those are great reference points because sometimes you know you can't dive through an old issue of something, or you see a character that appears on one of the shows that you're watching. You know, there was tons of stuff that I had to go back through my Marvel encyclopedia when I was watching Loki. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I think I know this. I mean, there were so many little Easter eggs. Has everybody seen Loki? I don't want to mention anything.
No, I want you to mention it because I'm going to ask you a question about Loki.
Okay. Well, the real thing I wanted to mention real quick that cracked me up the most was the Thanos copter that was grounded in the little purgatory world. I mean, because that was in Spidey Super Stories, you know, that he flew a helicopter with his name on it. You know, it's like, what? I mean, for them to put that little plunk in there, I thought, you know what? Somebody's doing something right over there.
They even remember when they went down into the ground? They showed the bunker.
Yes.
And what do you see jumping up and down in the
Throg?
Yep. I love
great.
Little side bits. So, did you watch the last episode?
I did.
All right. Were you disappointed with the last episode? Be honest. I wasn't.
Well, I don't think I have to admit, I really thought they were, what I've been calling it when I talk to people is I really thought they were going to pull the Mephisto rug out from underneath us.
So did I.
You know, I thought, okay, it's going to be something, because even Feige has said at a couple of points that you're not going to have to go back and watch the shows to understand the movies. So I thought, well, okay, you know what it's going to be? The big bad will be, I know they showed that little glimpse of like the gladiator Loki or demon Loki. I was like, it's going to be that guy. That's what I thought they're going to go with, and then just wrap it up.
What everybody's been specking on that was, what's his name? Who is it, guys?
Oh, Kang.
Everybody's saying Kang. Yeah. And if you look at the statue in the end, that's not Kang's outfit.
Yeah.
It's like, what? So, and he never says who he is.
The closest you get to it is he mentions, I've been called a lot of things.
Yes.
And he says, I've been called a conqueror.
Yes.
You know, he who remains.
I love that. I love it.
You're right. They never, and I posted that. I'm like, just because they didn't say the K word, did he really appear?
That line appears in a comic book. Also, when he's first met, it appears in a comic book. I've been called many things.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then does Jonathan Majors mentioning that he was, now again, I can't remember if he said, did he say Nathaniel Richards, or did he just allude to it that he was Nathaniel Richards?
I also think it's funny that in the Snyder Cut, Martian Manhunter says the same thing. I've been called many things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, so did the Rolling Stones. They wrote a song that, you know, he'd been called by many names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think it's funny. Like, you know.
I love the way, I have to admit, what Disney has done with the universe of Marvel in itself. They've been very creative.
Right.
They've really kept your attention. I like that, what they've done to it.
Oh, I really do too.
Well, see, they're gonna lead up to a big Kang episode, the Avengers fighting, because that's what it's all going to build up to. Because he's supposed to be an Ant-Man.
Yes.
Well, I also think too the Ant-Man's going to tie into the What If series, because if you look into Kang, right? So Kang always messes with time, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Always.
Ant-Man travels in different infinite realities, right?
Yep.
Through the time scopes. So that's all going to tie in too. So that's all going to spin the what if stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, so that's how that's all going to probably go.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Where's my Silver Surfer? God damn it.
Well, and again, you know, Galactus is probably coming.
Oh, man.
I mean, he's got to be, you know, showing up. And again, they're talking about yet another Fantastic Four movie. Hopefully this one doesn't bomb, because this will be what?
Oh.
Well, but this one will fall under the care of Marvel for the first time.
Yeah, true. But again, at the same time, like all the other ones have been, I mean, pretty bad. I mean, really pretty bad.
You know that when Galactus come with that cloud in its circle and it was going to eat the Earth and everything, you know, if you want to get on the Star Trek, it reminded me of when Kirk was come up with that ship that was shaped like a cone where you put your Thanksgiving fruit and all that stuff in. It was eating planets, and it was like
Planet Eater. Yes.
Yeah.
Was
and I was sitting there going, really?
The Doomsday Machine.
Doomsday Machine. That's it.
I said, is this how you're going to portray Galactus?
No.
You know.
I think Galactus is inevitable. I mean, let's hope so. I mean, I'd love to see Mephisto. I'd love to see, you know, I'd love to really, really, really see Doom. A really good version of Doom would be absolutely brilliant in the MCU.
Yeah.
But, you know, a Fantastic Four book or movie would really probably have to introduce him, I would think.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know what kind of ground they're going to want to tread.
Brian, I don't know if you want me to post that question, but if you're looking on the questions down on the bottom, do you know who that is?
I'm not.
It says John Lover one. Says hello, guys.
No, I can't see it because I'm not watching the YouTube feed, so I don't see what you're seeing.
Sorry. Okay, it's the last question on the YouTube feed. All right. Anyway, doesn't matter. Right now, I don't know who that is. Thanks for being here, but I don't know. I'm going to put that question.
Well, you can put that one up if you want. I see it now. I switched over under comments.
All right. Is that cool?
Yeah, I mean, he's just curious how much I paid for any of those books. A lot of them actually are shelf price. I mean, I bought them, you know, when, you know, the only one, I'm trying to think which one I
cover price.
Yeah, I mean, most of them were cover price, you know,
just like
or given to me, you know, passed down.
Yeah, if you see John's Monty's collection, you're talking about like 50 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents. He bought those right off the shelf at the time.
Yeah, I'm trying to
not for 5 cents. I didn't.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything in one.
That's how old you are.
You're older than
I didn't
me.
show it, but I have the first appearance of ISIS in that Shazam run. You know, that's from this run, and I did not own that initially. I paid $30 for that at a con.
Which run? Which one was
I think it's issue. What is Black Adam 28? Yeah, so ISIS is issue number 25 of this Shazam run. So that's the first appearance of ISIS in the Bronze Age Shazam, and I paid $30 for that at a con not too long ago.
Okay.
And she's actually going to be in the Shazam movie, or not Shazam, sorry, the Black Adam movie with The Rock.
ISIS is?
Yes.
Ooh.
So again, that's another book that could see a little, you know,
little bump, big time. Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of DC stuff that's not getting a lot of love as far as the spec game goes.
Yeah, and I don't know why that is. We've talked. I've been in a couple other little chats and talked with people. Like Marvel, it's almost like a guarantee for whatever reason. Like when something drops in, you know, in Disney Plus shows or in the movies. I mean, people just go bananas for it on eBay and everything.
You know what I think it is, though. To be honest, gentlemen, what I think it is, it's because Marvel's hit the point when it comes to showing the spectacle of the Marvel books on the big screen.
No.
DC has made, listen though, in general public form, DC has done awesome on the animation. Their animation's on top notch. Now, if they could just take that top notch animation and put it on the big screen and make us happy, that would be great. I mean, come on. I have to admit, I like the Snyder cut of what they did, the redo. Yeah. It was 3 hours long, but it was better than the first one.
4 hours long.
Yeah, I know, with all the other stuff.
Right.
But it was better than what we seen the first time around, which was a stinker.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, totally. That's what they need to do, is stay with the story.
Well, I'll take it a different level. I'll tell you what
Sure.
Marvel did. Marvel took it to a different level when they did X-Men the animated series.
Yeah.
Because X-Men the animated series was actually aired in multiple languages, countrywide, nationwide, not quite global, but way more spread out than any other cartoon animated series that was comic related. So that drew in so many more Marvel fans and X-Men fans that the
Right.
Marvel fan base grew exponentially bigger than the DC fan base, because DC didn't have anything remotely like the animated X-Men series.
Right.
That got, like I said, they got
DC was just stuck with Batman and Superman. You know,
Right,
the Bruce Timm and the Paul Dini stuff. They were doing, the Batman Adventures and Superman Adventures. Just again, the great shows.
None of that stuff was aired almost globally.
Right.
Whereas the X-Men animated series was.
Yeah.
So you've got a way bigger Marvel fan base just because of that show alone. Because it was aired in so many countries and so many languages. And again, X-Men fans, became, and then look at what X-Men books, even non-key X-Men books right now, are selling for crazy money.
Yeah. It's insane.
And again,
this Marvel's great.
This is the example of that exposure.
But see, that's the thing, Deuce. I agree with you there. It's like, but you have to admit that DC needs to get the same friggin' or get a good director, stay with a story, and tell it right that everybody knows.
No, I think you're absolutely right. But again, I also agree with you that the DC animated stuff, especially a lot of the darker DC stuff, like the Justice League, the Dark Justice League, a lot of the Constantine stuff, the Swamp Thing stuff they've come out with for DC animated has been absolutely brilliant.
Man.
I mean, absolutely brilliant. And again, don't get me wrong, Batman Beyond was great, and even the Batman the Animated Series was brilliant. But it didn't get the exposure that old X-Men show did.
No.
Globally.
True.
Right.
True. Very true.
So I mean, if those shows did what the X-Men animated series did those years ago, then DC would have a much bigger market share, I feel like, in the animated market, as well as if they made movies like the MCU is doing now. Well, of course, they don't have anybody like Feige, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, well, DC's answer to that X-Men series was Teen Titans.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was great, but it still didn't get that kind of same exposure.
Right.
But we live in that world now where I think everything is expected to compete in the global marketplace.
This sounds like.
And if you even go back and look at, there's certain movies where they're even shooting extra scenes that are dumped into those releases that play in other countries that we never see.
Yes, they do.
I know they did it with Iron Man. Was it Iron Man 3 or Iron Man 2? I can't remember. Shot a whole little different section where Tony's operated on in the hospital with some Asian actors that were popular in like some certain stories that were playing in that market, and they cast them in roles at the hospital. Right. So
actually, there were things that were written in his handbook too. There were things that were like written in a journal.
Oh yes, Captain America. I remember that. Yeah,
different they were marketed in different countries in different languages.
Yep.
So that actually was a very smart thing that Marvel did too.
Right.
Because they actually did that in every different market that it's shown in. It showed up in their native languages with, native, historical things and things that actually related to the audience.
Yeah.
Which was really super smart. But again, that kind of global exposure makes,
I mean, because if you think about Marvel for an example, okay, Marvel went to
Big Trouble. Sorry, Big Trouble in Little China is brilliant. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah. Like an example, if you guys haven't seen that on Disney Plus, that's actually really good too. What was it called? 616 or 616? And if you watch that, what's that?
Yeah, that was an alternate universe. Yeah.
But what's cool is they show you what Stan Lee was doing with Marvel in Japan. Do you realize, you guys, Spider-Man had a machine gun before he had his webs in Japanese?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
If you watch the Japanese version, you guys, you want to get some history, watch those. Those were great. You're like, what is this? But that's what they showed over there. Totally different. And
Captain America in the early stuff, he had in the black and whites, he had the pistol and no shield.
Yes.
Yeah, you did too.
Yeah. Hold on. Get up here with Eon. But the Chinese in charge of DC Dark Constantine series, all around 50 episodes of lots of drama. Yeah. You know what? I have to say that too. I love my Korean movies, but the damn endings take forever. You want it to end and it doesn't. It just long drawn out. But I get it. So, but yeah, I want DC to get some love, but they need to stick with some kind of, they need to find that recipe. And I want to see that. I would love to see, in my own eyes, I would love to see some classic like DC horror, like House of Mystery. Do a series like kind of like even a TV, even if they put it on cable or made a series out of it. Kind of like, remember like Dark Shadows as an example? Not that.
Right.
Well, not that cheesy, but it was still entertaining. I used to watch that when I came home when I was a kid. It was a vampire.
DC has actually had some decent shots at some of these.
Yeah.
And some of these shows have actually done well. But most of them are all spinoffs from the Vertigo
Hold on,
series.
buddy. Hold on.
Your House of Mystery.
Look at that.
Yeah.
See, look at that.
Great Neil Adams cover.
See, look at that. I love it. And that actually coming from the first. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. That is awesome. Beautiful, Brian.
But DC's actually had some decent shots at some of these darker series.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done well with some of them. Like Lucifer was a DC Vertigo title that spawned out of Sandman. And Lucifer ran for what, 2, 3? I don't know if it's still going or not.
Netflix actually picked it up.
But it's run for 2 or 3 seasons already. You know, and now they're talking about doing Sandman, which will be brilliant. Again, that's also Neil Gaiman. And that's where Lucifer came from, was the Neil Gaiman universe. I'd like to see Books of Magic. I'd like to see Swamp Thing ran for a season and it didn't get the popularity they wanted it to.
I thought it was pretty solid. I enjoyed Swamp Thing.
I thought it was cool too, but again, like I said, it didn't catch on.
No.
And I've always been a Swamp Thing fan. And again, they're also talking about doing the Justice League Dark, which I think will be brilliant too. You know, the Constantine movie wasn't bad. It wasn't John Constantine from the comics that we know.
Right.
No.
But Keanu was not a bad John Constantine.
No, he wasn't.
He was pretty solid.
I love that. I love that movie.
But again, like I said, they've had some decent shots at it, but
sorry, Monty.
they've not quite gone the full-on direction that I think that they could. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think G-Man, made a good point. They need a shepherd.
Yeah,
Kevin Feige is the shepherd at Marvel.
Yeah.
No,
and I'm sure he kind of keeps that writer's room in line, and they, work things to, hey, this is where we're going, this is where we're building to.
Yeah, they have a vision.
As everybody knows, just try to play catch up too quick. 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag, as my dad used to say.
Quit changing the directors. I don't want to see this is, and I'm sorry to say this, but I'm really seeing this. Like, I know there's a different generation of people, and we all are in different generations. You got the X generation, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. We're all in the pool together. But let's get some kind of commonality when it comes to these movies, especially with DC. And DC seriously needs the help with this. And okay, Wonder Woman. What can you say? I loved Wonder Woman. The first Wonder Woman, fantastic. It was fantastic. Well done. Good story. Aquaman, I loved it. I don't care that he wasn't a blonde. I'm sorry. I like Jason Momoa. I thought he played great. He's a man's man. Boom. Aquaman, they did an excellent, lot of action. But that's what I'm saying. Get that formula. Stay with that formula right there. That's their formula.
But I also like the director. I think the director had a lot to. James Wan put a lot into that Aquaman movie.
Yeah, he did.
And I think James Wan is a great director, no matter pretty much whatever he touches. And again, even though the story was kind of, it needed a little more depth, but he did a great job with what he was given.
a balance. He put
Yeah.
some balance in there because of attention spans and people, do they want to see the story? It's like, yeah, but yeah,
Again,
you
but
get
then
where
they
I'm
came
coming
out with
from.
Wonder Woman 84, and I saw it and I was like, wow, this is pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with that. That went sideways.
It really
kind of
did.
a
I was
bummer.
like, what on earth? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. It had nothing to do with Gal Gadot. She's brilliant.
Oh.
She's amazing.
Mhm.
Super talented. She's beautiful. But I was like, what the hell kind of sideways crazy story is this? Like, it just didn't
And
make any sense.
And one of the things that Puff had mentioned a while back,
I-
Stay Puff was hilarious. He goes, the
Yeah.
only thing I couldn't get out of my mind when it came to Wonder Woman is all the jumping in the air, like Superman.
Yeah.
She was doing a lot of jumping, fly high, like Superman, and coming back down. She did a lot of that.
And then riding the lightning with her lasso.
Yeah.
The cheetah, I thought was brilliant. I thought that she was kind of dumbed down.
Now
Yeah,
she
because
was
the cheetah-
riding the lightning like Spider-Man was swinging. Man, come on, really?
But the cheetah portrayal in that movie, because the cheetah is actually Wonder Woman's like arch nemesis,
Yeah.
and always has been. And I felt like they kind of dumbed her down. It didn't make her like as cool and as badass as she could have been. I mean, it was interesting to see kind of the development of how they set her up.
Sure.
And I liked what they did with Barbara Minerva, but at the same time, like, they didn't make her nearly as deadly as she literally can be.
Sure.
They kind of baby step tiptoed around her and her lethality.
I think they're.
And that's a little bit of a problem these movies are trying to have, or setting themselves up for, which is that whole anti-hero angle. They don't want to have anyone, go full big bad because they need to have that little redemption arc in there for whatever reason.
Yeah, but see, unfortunately, that's the whole, unfortunately, it's just the nature of the world we live in. Everybody gets a trophy. Nobody's really a bad guy. Everybody's going to win. You get a ribbon, you get a ribbon, you get a ribbon, you get a ribbon, you get a gold star, you get a gold star. And unfortunately, that's not the real world.
No.
That's the world that they're trying to create and trying to develop. Yeah. But let's be honest, like, when you grade your students in class, you go, wow, you did a kick-ass job. That was amazing. You get an A. And wow, you didn't do a damn thing. You get a B. No, that's not how it works.
No.
That's not how it works. That's not the real world.
Otherwise.
You didn't do anything. You didn't show up. Like, you barely put a presentation together. You didn't do any of the research. You have, like, your videos, like 2 clips. You're done. You failed.
Reality check. Yep. Life.
I mean, at least I'd like to think that's how it goes. I don't know.
Yes. No, you're pretty spot on.
Yeah. Good. I'm not so old. This is like some people like, no. It's like,
well, I mean, you got this whole
we shouldn't have to get classified in different genres. I mean, different ages or whatever you want to call it. But it's like everybody's classifying everything. You got the X generation, which is us old guys, and all these other they get categorized into groups, and they really shouldn't. And you feel like you're being stereotyped into one location. You know what I mean? As a person.
But what's funny about that, though, is like you can go through the patterns and kind of see why people think people are put into what generation, right? To some degree.
Right.
But it's also about the generation before.
Yeah.
And how they treated their kids and how they raised their children.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And again, that is all passed down, right? So every generation wants their kids to have everything that they didn't have.
Sure.
Right. So as we keep going and people keep having more and more, or sometimes less and less, depending on the circumstances, right? that pendulum gets really, really skewed really, really quickly. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
I hear you.
We could go on and on with this conversation about DC and Marvel, but there's reasons why Marvel is better at certain things and reasons that DC is better at certain things. That we definitely see.
Think it's also too about the media groups that own them.
Yep. True. Very true.
Because DC's been owned by Warner Brothers for a very, very long time now.
Yep. I am just happy as pie that Marvel is getting its rights back for some of my heroes. I really am. I'm so sick of them being broken up for so long, and they're finally getting them back. It's like
Yeah,
the
that
whole
was such a
thing-
fire sale when they were just trying to stay afloat as a comic company.
Man, yeah. And every time I bring that up, Brian, have you noticed that too?
What's
It's
that?
like if you noticed that too as well.
Oh yeah,
I brought that up as well. Like when Marvel was almost going bankrupt, and they divided all of their a lot of their properties up, and when they started getting into the movies, no one gives Blade any justice, especially when it comes to like bringing Marvel to the map, the full map.
Dude,
when they started
Marvel-
coming out.
Blade was the first Marvel movie that actually made money.
Made money.
Made a lot of money.
and that trilogy still holds up pretty good.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. The
Oh,
first
hold
one
on.
by far is
Sorry.
still the best.
What's that?
And so the first one to me is still by far the best.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. What was it? What did he say here?
Yeah, they need to make a Blade Morbius movie.
You think?
Absolutely.
I'd be so happy. I would be so happy.
I'd love to see the full Midnight Suns with Ghost Rider too.
I don't know what they're going to do with Ghost Rider. I know there was the appearance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I'm not sure where they're going to go with that in terms of the big screen Marvel.
Well, I mean, they at one point had been talking to. There were rumors a while back about Keanu playing Ghost Rider, but
I heard that
again,
too.
But this has been a while back, and there's been nothing
Right.
confirmed and no other
Oh, yeah.
information, but just rumors months and months and months ago. But I mean, I'd love to see Ghost Rider come to the big screen. I didn't think the Ghost Rider movie they did
Space
was
Ranger.
terrible.
Yes, DC does some stuff well. If you haven't seen their anime, okay, don't pay attention to the movies then right away. Just go to watch some of their animation. There's a ton of it
the
out
DC, the Justice League dark stuff they've
there. Excellent.
done is really, really good.
Their animation is really well done. It's on par. If they could just turn that animation into their movies, they'd be right up there with Marvel. It'd be a competitive.
We'll see. Warner Brothers was, more into the animation than back in the old days, and they stuck with it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
because
And that's
you
why
know,
the Batman animated series did so well, and Batman Beyond was so good too. But also, they cast very well.
well, they've been doing it for years. You go back in the
Yeah.
40s and 30s, the Bugs Bunny and all the old
best
stuff
Warner
like
Brothers-
that.
All the best cartoons were the Warner Brothers cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, the infrastructure was already there.
Yeah.
Like Monty said, with Warner Brothers Studios and Bugs Bunny and on up
Absolutely.
through. So
Of course.
It's like they don't want to spend take that
that's
first
what I
step
see
and
too.
spend
It's
that
like they don't
money.
wanna spend the extra
And
money.
they may not, and of course, they don't have the money that Disney has. Disney is just made billions and billions of dollars and everything, and they can take that risk. And it's paid off for them. And Warner's, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that, well, it's been quite a few years ago. Warner Brothers was on the rails of being bankrupt also, and that's not the first time they went bankrupt. Back when Desi Arnaz and Lucy was with them when they split from them. So they're kind of nervous in a way of taking that big step, and they just don't want to pay the directors.
I want to
high-end
thank really quick.
directors.
I want to thank the chat really quick. We had like 11, 12 people watching. It's 2:30 in the morning, 3:00 for our gentleman here.
Yeah, my butt felt like it was like
I'm
4
sorry.
o'clock.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Oh, that's
Okay.
all right. I went and got a lawn chair. That's why I'm so low. I'm sitting in my lawn chair now with my pillow.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna wrap this up real quick. Monty, whoa, Monty, there you go. Monty, do you got anything that's coming up down the pipeline, buddy? Let the people know now.
Only this right here, as people can see, it's my comic empire at work. And let me I'll zoom out and let everybody see as much as they can see. Right there, and this is it goes. There's about there that way in front of me where the camera is. There's probably another 15 foot, so it's like 35 foot back that way. So and you can see some of my boxes, electricity boxes I got placed. We're going to start doing the electricity and conduit, and I got a bathroom over there. Oh, no, I can't. Over there. And then the office will be here. Then all down this wall right here will be Close to 90 foot of warehouse racks.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
cool, man.
So
built
this will be the
yourself
first. This will be the first time my entire collection is put in one location.
You got a comic empire for real.
Yeah, he does.
And it's going to have a production studio in it too. I've got all the stuff under concrete, all the conduits for my Cat 5 cable and all my data cables and stuff like that, and
Nice.
internet cables. So that's all in concrete. All I got to do is
the
run it
YouTube
under.
channel, for a YouTube channel, what's the next thing you're going to be working on?
I'm going to try if I can get work to slow down, which I don't really want it to, because I'm getting a lot of overtime, but I want to get back together with Kyle and do the Alien show and keep doing it, which y'all seen a sneak preview of the next one we were going to do, which was Atlantis. We was going to talk about Atlantis. And then I want to go back to Thursdays doing my my comic hauls that I pick up. But like I said, this is priority number one right here, you know.
Right.
And that's it.
Awesome. Look at this. DC Black Label Batman multiples. That's what Eon is saying. You got an underground bunker?
Yes, I do have a fallout shelter. It's just right
about
over
250
there.
lights. Awesome, Monty. Thank you. And Deuce, I always will. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll just be hanging out with you, my friend, next Saturday, and we'll
Awesome,
be
buddy.
chatting through the week and just doing the work thing. You know the drill.
Absolutely. Thank you, buddy. All right. Brian.
Well, first of
please.
all, just before I forget, thank you so much for this invite. Thanks for having me
Absolutely.
on. It's been great talking with all of you, and you know, I've seen them on the reruns of some of the shows, and sorry I missed out on Jeff, obviously, but
Yes.
I'll be seeing him real soon,
Good.
so we'll get to meet up again. But again, thank you so much for this. It's been a real treat to be on the show and interact with some of the people in the chat, and of course, you know, hang out with you guys here, regardless of the hour of the evening.
Yes.
As far as everything that's coming down the pike, obviously I'm still kicking out videos for the channel. Every Wednesday I drop something new. Got some trips coming up. I'm going to Texas in September. Going to hit some comic book shows there. Here locally in Florida, we got Tampa Bay Comic Con on July 30th, doing a video for that. Got MegaCon on August 15th. I'll do a video for that. We got Daytona Beach Comic Con September 18th. I'll do a video for that. Then, of course, hitting all the shops along the way. When I go to a different town, I do the Google and comic shops near me, and I go to them and see how they work out and make videos. So obviously, if you're not already, would appreciate you subscribing to the channel or at least checking it out to see if it's something that is of interest to you, and go from there. So, but again, I'm having fun doing this. This has been a blast, and like I said, such a thrill to make all these new connections and make friends. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I don't need all the likes and subscribes that one might think. I'm more happy keeping things a little more organic and keeping it real and getting to know people.
Are you going to be at Dallas Fan Days?
What is the date on that one?
I think it's in September.
Because I'm going over Labor Day weekend is when I'll be in town. I will be in Dallas.
Yeah, it's going to be later on than that.
Okay. Yeah. So just going for a few days. I mentioned I'm turning 50. So we're going over there to meet up with some friends.
You're still 5 years younger than me, brother.
So,
Knock it off.
Well, my daughter's having a blast with this, making all kinds of 50 jokes, and so
of course she is.
Yeah.
You're an old man now.
Yeah. Again, we talked about stereotypes. There's the stereotype.
Yeah, exactly.
Here comes the rain. I got to shut my door. Here comes the rain again.
Downhill. The rest from now on.
Well, thank you, Brian, for being here. You've been very entertaining and very, very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you again for having me. Really appreciate it. Good talking to everybody.
Stick around, Byron. Ryan.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Hold on. Where are we? Okay. Boom. Thank you, YouTube community. Another Nerdy Collective show. Awesome. I want to say thank you to all my guests tonight, my co-host tonight. You guys rocked it tonight. Brian, thank you so much. And you, YouTube, everybody, community members, please go check out the links down below in the description. Brian's links are down below, and all the gentlemen on the panel tonight are down below as well. Go check them out. And we will see you in a week. I'll probably drop a couple of videos periodically coming next week sometime. I'll let you know when they come. But thank you very much. So peace, love, blessed be you guys, and we'll see you next Saturday.